according to Ashok Swain, a professor of peace and conflict research at Sweden's Uppsala University.
There have been several things which have happened, particularly the 2019 Easter bombing, which is a terror attack which killed more than 200 people. And after that, there is the tourism dropped, and tourism brings $5 billion annually to the country. And then the COVID came in, then the Ukraine crisis. So all these things which led to external problems, but internally, the Rajapaksa family had taken over the country. There was no check and balances. A huge corruption was going on. And I think it was more of internal political problem, which was become much more problematic because of the external factors.
Massive uncertainty lies ahead. The demonstrators say they're staying on the streets. The main news again, there's been fury in Paris over claims that President Macron secretly helped Uber advance its business goals in France when he served as the country's economy minister. Heathrow Airport is warning of more flight cancellations and further disruption throughout the summer. And Tuesday's hearing on the January 6th Capitol riot is expected to focus on ways Donald Trump encouraged violent extremists to participate in the attack. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Could dropping bombs on Afghans without warning from terrifying robot airplanes that fly themselves actually hurt America's efforts to stabilize Afghanistan?
It's complicated.
No, not at all. Actually, I think we need to stay the course. You don't change horses midstream, and you don't stop firing missiles from unseen death droids soaring high above the clouds just because a couple of schools get blown up.
We have got to find another way to obliterate this population.
What about flaming bulldozers or 50-foot-tall tanks?
Let's do what we can for these civilians. I mean, why not name the drones Billy or Steve to make them seem less dispassionate?
Oh, that is a terrible idea. Billy is a horrible name for a drone.
They're now developing a 40-foot robot that actually looks more like an American soldier and also sprays lasers out of his eyes.
Well, at least that's a step forward.
Hey, look, as long as it fires missiles and bombs with very little accuracy and zero Americans are at threat, I'm all for it.
Good point.
They should give it funny, floppy arms.
Yes.
Oh, it should spray candy out of its chest a few minutes before it starts shooting everything.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. If you want to join us, you can do that. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, you've got Ian.
Nobody formerly known as Rich Paul.
And Arya.
And of course, you can bring up anything that's on your mind. Coming up, Arya, you're going to tell us a little bit about some of the latest news out of Russia that regarding Putin wanting to be called something besides president. We'll share that with you on the way here tonight. Plus, the war on weed continuing in California. But first, I do want to say send a thank you out to the producers behind HBO's new documentary series that I guess started last night. I hear it's airing after Westworld for the next 6 weeks. So it's a multi-part, hour-long, basically, 50-minute, hour-long per part documentary series called The Anarchists.
I've heard really good things about it, but I haven't watched it yet, and I'm not sure whether or not I'm really going to, because for one, I personally know the people involved for the most part, so I know the story, and they're not getting any money off of it or anything like that. So it's like I would just be giving money to HBO to be giving HBO money in order to watch it. Which I do have an HBO Max account, so I'm giving them money anyway. But it's like, do I want to take the time out to actually watch this show that isn't actually doing anything to help my friends? I mean, it's not on their YouTube channels or anything like that, so it's not going to do any of them any favors for us to watch it.
I forgot that people still paid for media.
Well,
if I can't torrent it, I don't watch it.
I have bill restrictions that prohibit me from torrenting, so...
Well, I would say this. I did watch. There was a presentation with some of the local activists today where it was viewed, and so I had the chance to see it, and I thought it was excellent. Yeah, of course, we're already voluntarists. We know what it means to believe in freedom. We understand the definitions and all that.
But it's not a hit piece, remarkably.
Well, that's the thing, and that's what's interesting about this series is. It was produced by somebody who is friendly to the libertarian or anarchist, if you prefer to use that term, viewpoint. And they're trying to correct the misinformation about the word anarchist, which is for so long one of my major objections to using it has been that people tend to think of bomb throwing and violence, and they address that right up front. I mean, it's like the first thing in the first episode is they literally have video of somebody throwing a Molotov cocktail, and they freeze frame it, and they say, not that kind of anarchist. And then they talk about like peaceful.
Well, that kind of person isn't an anarchist, right?
But that's what they say about themselves. Those people say they are anarchists, and the news media says that they are anarchists.
I know, but trying to replace
there are different kinds of anarchists.
Well, no, the people who are using Molotov cocktails and violence to achieve their ends, they're just mini states. They want to be the next state. There's nothing anarchistic about that.
Well, you and I understand that, but most people don't.
I know,
and
sadly.
And I think that is one of the sort of the main thrusts so far of this particular documentary series, is to try to inform people differently about that particular subject.
Well, there's certainly a huge benefit in that. So maybe I will have to watch it just to encourage HBO to do more of the same.
Well, if not for that reason, just so you'll be able to comment on it and have an opinion about it. Because it was interesting. It was well put together. And you know, I learned some things. I mean, you said you know a lot of the people involved. And I have met most of the people probably that they interviewed, but I don't know them. I mean, they live in... some of them live in Acapulco.
That's true.
I think some of them have left Acapulco. I'm not sure. I think we're going to find that out over the series, like who's come and then who left, and what happened while they were there. What happened with the shooting? I know that's coming. They've teased that one. They're already interviewing the young woman, one of the three people that were attacked by a hit squad, basically. So that's going to be coming up in later episodes in detail.
Well, you've got to have drama.
They got the drama. It's coming. The drama's coming. They've already hinted that
they must really be over the target.
They were the target.
In Acapulco, I wouldn't say so. It's just in that case they were targeted, and it'll be interesting to hear their way of telling this particular story, because we heard about it from the third person in the home that was shot up, who survived it. One of two who survived.
I think we talked about it on Free Talk Live at Fork Fest 2 years ago.
I think we interviewed him about it. Jason Henza. He came there and told us the whole story, and it basically was like a jealous wannabe boyfriend who wanted to take out a hit on his competition. That seemed to be what it boiled down to. So, I mean, that didn't have anything to do with them being over the target as far as the state or anything like that. It was just jealousy and a personal conflict.
Oh.
Yeah. Because
I was thinking, wow, we were excited about getting a little protest.
Because the anarchists in Acapulco, I don't think they ever had any belief. If they did, it would have been insane that they could change anything. I think
they're just trying to be free, like Mark's plan with his little things.
The Honduras thing that he's doing, yeah.
I mean, he's not trying to combat the state or anything like that. He's just trying to carve out a little freedom kingdom where he can be whatever he perceives as being free.
Correct. And for a time, Mark did consider moving to Mexico as well. And I think that the drama in Acapulco, or at least the perception of it, was probably a turnoff to him, and he wanted to find a more free place than Mexico. Mexico just seems to be like the default. Oh, it's close. Let's go there kind of thing.
He needs to strap an Acme rocket to his back.
Why is that?
Because he's the Wile E. Coyote of liberty.
Mark Edge?
Yeah.
And he was in this briefly. I was also briefly shown. They had some footage of Free Talk Live broadcasting from Anarchapulco. I think they might have interviewed us at one point, and maybe that'll come up later. It's been some number of years. So I just wanted to say thank you to the producers of The Anarchists for opening their series with a line from Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I heard that the very first line spoken in the series was from you, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah.
Congratulations.
So, thanks. Thanks,
What'd
guys.
you say?
I don't remember.
From what I've heard, it's something along the lines of "We're here at Anarchapulco."
Yeah, just some sort of intro from the event where we were broadcasting. So it's going to be interesting. They're getting into some of the personalities and their stories, and so we'll learn more as it develops. But I do recommend it if you are at all curious about anarchy and you want to get some different perspectives on it. You want to hear about people who moved elsewhere, right? Like we talk a lot about New Hampshire and why people who care about liberty ought to concentrate here. This is showing an alternative perspective. This is the perspective of the expatriate, those who decided that they were not going to bother in the United States anymore, and they wanted to make an escape to Anarchapulco. And I think that what we're going to find is that people just don't get along real well, and that there were interpersonal conflicts. Just as
there always will be.
Yep, just as there have been here in New Hampshire as well. When you move dozens of people to the same place, and I only say dozens because I'm pretty sure Anarchapulco's never had more than that, or in our case in New Hampshire, when you move thousands of people to the same place, it's inevitable that some people aren't going to get along.
And on the subject of New Hampshire, don't worry, people out there may be wondering, well, how come the Free State Project hasn't gotten one of these? Well, actually, it's called Free State. Several. Well, the latest one is called Free State, and there were people all over the Porcupine Freedom Festival recording and interviewing people for basically the Free State version of this HBO special. So that's coming in the pipeline in the future.
I think the Free State one's probably going to be just a one-off documentary,
I think so.
Like hour and a half, 2 hour long thing.
The thing is,
it looks great.
Drama, it's so irrelevant because it's like 90% of the Free Staters could hate me, and I'd still have more anarchists to chill out with than I did in Michigan.
Yeah, that's a fact.
But I don't think the drama's irrelevant. And, the Free State Project's, the Free State special may be a one-off special. It really depends on how much drama they can find here.
Mm-hmm.
They may find enough to be like, oh, we got to turn this into a mini-series or whatever. One never knows. But, if you've got that drama, just like Tiger King, and it's crazy enough, you can get people to watch it, and it could be successful.
Yeah, and, I know the producer is interested in possibly selling the whatever it is that she cooks up. So maybe since HBO bought this first one from this other guy, maybe she'll be able to pitch it to HBO as sort of a follow-up.
Ours has a FBI raid and everything. The drama is way up there in New Hampshire.
They could retitle it, right? Because, if you sell the thing, they could change the name of it. It could be The Anarchists, Free State.
Yeah, like a sequel. Yeah, I like that.
So that'd be nice. The number here is 603-283-6160. But yeah, check out the Free State documentary as well. It doesn't exist yet, but there's like a 7 or 8 minute long promo trailer, or sizzle reel, I think, as they call it. And I highly recommend. I'll see if I can get the website for you because it's there. freestatedoc.com. Very, very cool. It looks like it's going to be something pretty awesome. There's more coming up here. You can join us on Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Aria.
You can join us online anytime you want. Just head on over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features that we have waiting for you. In fact, those features include archives that go back for years, and you can easily access those through our podcast feeds. Go to feeds.freetalklive.com. You'll find links to our podcast there. It's RSS feed. You copy the link, you put it into your favorite podcast client, or just use one of the existing options there. Grab the show that way, and then you'll get episodes as they are released. Super easy to do that. Just go to feeds.freetalklive.com to get started. We go to your phone calls and thoughts. Daryl is on the line in Missouri. Go ahead, Daryl.
Taking the call. You'd asked me what I was calling about. It's a sad day for liberty here in Missouri. I'm a candidate for Missouri U.S. Senate. I'm running against Eric Greitens, who is he's a 2013 recipient of the World Economic Forum. He's a young globalist, and they're portraying him as a Republican. And I'm running as a Republican, but I followed the Free State Project since about 2011.
Is your opponent the incumbent?
No, he's not the incumbent. Is resigning. That would be Matt Blunt.
Okay, so it's an open seat.
It's an open seat, and we have an old-time senator here, Jack Danforth, who's injected an independent to it, and Billy Long, he looks like Porky Pig. I got a tweet up on my Twitter, Missouri battle flag, which I never get any thumbs up or hearts.
So why were you calling our show tonight, Daryl?
Jeffrey Winehouse. Do you guys know about the shooting of Jeffrey Winehouse in Missouri?
There have been so many shootings, especially by the police. It's hard to really track them all. Who shot him?
Some of your listeners might remember the cop block, and it was in Missouri, and Jeffrey was shot by the Missouri Highway Patrol, and it turns out that the officer that shot him, Henry Folsom, in legal evidence that came out where he tried to get his job back, they said he was defective and he failed a drug test. He was on Adderall and Prozac when he shot Jeffrey.
Wow.
And he told stories that he worked for the CIA, and he said the next guy that pulled his wallet out quickly, he would shoot him, and Jeffrey got shot. He had shot someone and killed them years prior to shooting Jeffrey, and was on Adderall and Prozac for PTSD, and I don't hit the guy for that. But I hit the Missouri
Adderall and
Patrol.
Prozac for PTSD?
They don't want to give people something like shrooms that could actually cure these
I advocate
things.
for mushrooms. I do. That's on my, if you go to my Twitter, you'll see a thing I advocate for, things I oppose and things I advocate, and I do have mushrooms on there for PTSD. I think.
So
there
the
are
cop
natural
killed this guy? Shot him to death?
No, he didn't kill Jeffrey. They gave him 30 years for. They gave Jeffrey Winehouse 30 years for attempted murder on Henry Folsom, the guy that was on Adderall and Prozac.
Wait, hold on. Let me see if I'm following this. Hold on. Folsom, the cop, shot Winehouse, and the guy who got shot by the cop ended up in prison for 30 years?
Yeah, and he calls me every day from prison. And Jeffrey was wearing an early spy watch. You know who Gavin Syme is? Gavin Syme advocated for him for a long time.
Yeah, Gavin Syme is actually an expatriate who's moved to Mexico. Ties into our first
And I
segment.
really attacked him for that at the time, and I have to repent. I gave him a lot of hate for leaving, but the situation that I found myself in over a property, and you can find that out at my YouTube channel, Missouri Battle Flag. The videos I've been told are
Yeah, so I have to ask, this guy, Winehouse, was he convicted or did he take a plea deal?
Yes, he was convicted, and today the governor denied his clemency.
Oh, man.
See, this is the problem with the jury system, right? Everyone thinks that a jury can give you a fair trial or anything like that. No,
my latest videos are for
A jury can give you a fair trial.
True, yeah,
It's
but
just
they're not likely. That's not the way people work, right?
So that's not the way people are brainwashed. We know as people who are awake or red-pilled that a fully informed jury has all the information and can nullify the government's law and the government's,
But yeah, but people are still emotional, panicky little things. I don't think the average person has the constitutional fortitude to actually be fair and unbiased.
Mm-hmm.
I just
They
don't.
won't have me on the Kansas City radio. They hang up on me and they say it's Daryl the cop hater because I call for accountability and fair treatment of everyone.
Wow. Do you have like a campaign website you want to plug?
I just have a Facebook and a Twitter. I'm actually not allowed to participate in the debate tonight because I don't have enough money. I don't have a forward-facing website, and they said I'm uninvited along with 12 other candidates. I suspect.
All right. Well, what's your last name, Daryl, so people in Missouri can learn about you?
It's Daryl McClanahan, Missouri Battle Flag.
Daryl with one R, two R's. How do you spell Daryl?
2 R's and 2 L's.
2 R's, 2 L's. Good luck, Daryl. I appreciate your call tonight, man. Thanks for the heads up on the cop shooting, one of an innumerous number of shootings. It's really depressing to continually report on people just being wholesale murdered and slaughtered by corrupt cops across the country.
That's what police do, though. I mean, they are, as the video that you're posting to our Odyssey channel, the Free Kings Odyssey channel in the near future suggests, that's what cops do. They show up, and all too often, they kill people.
And almost never are held actually accountable for it in any way.
And they're never your friends. Cops are never there to help or anything like that. My house recently got egged. The neighbors called the cops, but
really?
Yeah, I'm proud to say the cops didn't even bother to talk to me.
Because they knew you wouldn't talk to them.
Right. So, yay. I mean, because it wouldn't have done any good. Worst outcome, I mean, they managed to find these teenagers and they charged them for, being teenagers, essentially. And then they've got this hanging over their heads. That's not worth it, right? It's involving or they show up and they shoot the 5 kids or whatever. There's no telling with cops.
That'd be bad. Let's go to your calls. More with now Dave Ridley on the line from New Hampshire. Go ahead, Ridley.
Oh, Say Can You Bleed by Baton's Daily Smite.
Okay.
It's easy for you
But
to
I
say.
was calling about something else. The candidacy of Lily Tang Williams running for U.S. Congress in New Hampshire. I'm a little vague on whether she's technically a free stater or whether she's just someone that's pork fest.
Lily Tang Williams is, as I understand it, a Free State Project participant. She is noteworthy in a lot of ways because she gets a lot of national press. She's been on Tucker Carlson. She's been interviewed by the Epoch Times or whatever, various different online and actual broadcast sources. And that's because she's got a long history of advocating for liberty. She moved to the United States from China. She was there, in some of the worst of China's history, and she managed to get out. And then she moved, I think, to Colorado at some point, lived there for a while, and heard about the Free State Project somehow, and ended up moving out here. I believe she lives just down the street from Jay Noon and is a pretty principled
She's pretty awesome.
She's a firecracker for sure. Like, she definitely understands what freedom's all about. Dave, I know you had something to say about her, so stand by. We'll continue here in moments. The number 603-283-6160. She has run for office in Colorado, but I believe this is her first outing for running for office in New Hampshire, and she is running for a U.S. rep seat. And there's probably like at least half a dozen people that are running against her, so it's going to be a tough race. There's more coming up here. You can join us and bring up whatever's on your mind. It's Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with the latest world news. The German government says it's concerned Russia may be planning to tighten energy supplies after Moscow claimed it needs to carry out routine maintenance on the critical Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline. The pipeline is shutting for the next 10 days after the sudden announcement from Moscow. Trent Murray in Berlin says European governments are rattled by the news.
There is real concern here that this could be a pretext for Russia cutting off gas completely. And so many officials here in Berlin are watching this maintenance very, very closely. We know just after 6 a.m. local time, technical readings showed the gas did start to slow down. And as I say, it is an anxious watch now to see whether that window timeframe is adhered to or whether it could go on a little bit longer.
Democrats say Tuesday's hearing on the January 6th Capitol riot will focus on how former U.S. President Donald Trump encouraged violent extremists to travel to Washington to take part in the attack. Meanwhile, former Trump strategist Steve Bannon has now said he will testify at a public hearing. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The committee argued that Trump's tweet, in which he said there was a big protest planned for January the 6th and that it would be wild, was a siren call to violent extremists. That tweet on December the 19th, the committee says, served as an invitation to far-right militant groups, including the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, members of which travelled to the US Capitol and took part in the storming of the Capitol building. Tuesday's session will also focus on the former president's connections to those groups. It comes as his former strategist, Steve Bannon, U-turned on his decision to avoid testifying, saying he would now do it publicly. He's due to stand trial next week on contempt of Congress charges for refusing for months to meet with lawmakers. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
The largest airport in the UK has warned of more flight cancellations and further disruption this summer. Staff shortages and a surge in demand after COVID travel restrictions were lifted are being blamed for the problems. John Beaver reports.
Tens of thousands of passengers in the UK have already been affected by flight delays and cancellations. Now the man in charge of Heathrow Airport has warned of more travel misery to come. Chief Executive Officer John Holland Kay was talking after dozens more flights from the airport were cancelled as they struggle with a lack of staff and rising passenger numbers. Heathrow has been forced to make a number of schedule interventions and ask airlines to cancel some flights if the airport isn't able to cope. In a bid to limit the number of last-minute cancellations, the UK government has urged airlines to make sure their schedules are deliverable.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us. Bring up whatever you want at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Nobody, and Arya in the studio tonight. And I want to make sure that you know about Bitcoin.com. Great place to go and learn about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. In fact, we were talking about the new documentary series on HBO entitled The Anarchists. And the founder of Bitcoin.com is included in that series. Roger Ver has a few clips of him speaking from the very earliest Anarchapulco event. And it seems like the documentary series is going to focus on Anarchapulco and the migration of people down to Acapulco as far as anarchist types moving there. It's going to be pretty interesting. But Bitcoin's going to become, I think, a feature of this as well. I was looking at some of the posts online, and from the producer or whoever it was behind the film or the series, and Bitcoin was certainly mentioned. So
how could it not be?
Yeah, of course,
right.
Of course. It didn't really play into this first episode very much, but I think it is. I think it got a mention or two, but I think that's coming. Go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and you can begin your process of learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Get your first wallet set up, and then maybe get some crypto. The price is quite a ways down from its peak that it hit in the last year, so it might be a good opportunity. But the first thing you want to do is start learning, and click Get Started at the top of Bitcoin.com to do that. You can also get their news headlines over at news.bitcoin.com. Let's go back to Dave Ridley. You were calling in about one of the political candidates, Lily Tang Williams. She is a Chinese escapee. She got out from Red China and came to the United States and became a libertarian. From what I can tell, a pretty hardcore voluntarist kind of libertarian.
People I know and trust speak very highly of her. I don't know her positions or her beliefs that well. I know she's anti-communist and that she's a free stater, or she's at least affiliated with the Free State Project, at least to the extent that I am.
I'm pretty sure she's a signer, and she moved here for the Free State Project.
But like State Rep Matt Santanastasso and you and Jay Noon and all of these other people speak very highly of her. So when Matt came around with signs for her, I was like, hell yeah, throw one in my yard. Right.
So what about her, Dave?
Wait, no, I don't. I'm not very familiar with her. I do not have enough information to vouch for her yet.
I figured that you didn't know her because you said in the last segment that you didn't seem too familiar with her. So,
correct. And obviously, when people run for Congress, especially if they win, it tends to be, it never tends to. They never seem to stay in Congress and be a good person, right? It doesn't seem. It's only happened to one or two people in history, it seems like. So,
well, the power definitely corrupts. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And we've certainly seen libertarians come here, purported anarchists, come here to New Hampshire and get elected to even weak seats like State House and seemingly lose their minds. So it is certainly possible, and it doesn't seem like many people are immune to that.
It does seem rare, though, for free staters, at least in the State House here. I mean, most of them that I'm aware of, they stayed true to libertarianism even after being elected.
But at the same time, Arya, they're not putting forth principled bills like, okay, let's abolish government schools. Let's end the war on drugs. Let's end, property taxes, things like that. They're not touching
Some of them
issues.
do.
I think it might be a good time for end the war on drugs.
It's always a good time for that
bill, but it makes some sense to me not to put in bills that are too extreme without a particular purpose for doing it.
Well, the purpose is you end the war on drugs.
And you normalize the idea, right? It's going to sound extreme.
But you're not going to do that if the bill doesn't pass.
But you will get a conversation started.
That's exactly it, right? No matter how extreme it is, it's going to get people talking about it. The first time they hear about it, it's going to sound crazy and extreme.
And it won't
but the
pass.
second time, the third time, the fourth time, this was the whole idea of the secession bill that we helped, that Dave Ridley helped bring forward to the New Hampshire House this past session, was we didn't expect it to pass. It would have been great.
We knew it wasn't going to pass, yeah.
But it got people talking about the idea of secession.
They're still talking about it. This video, by the way, that I've just finished uploading to our Odyssey channel, or the Free Keene Odyssey channel, which is video.freekeene.com. I've got 2 videos up. There's the full hour-long, all the speeches from the stage. It was this anti-Free State Project rally that happened here in Keene over the weekend where dozens attended. So I got the full...
In Soviet America, government protests you.
That's what's happening in Keene and in New Hampshire, but not anywhere else.
Well, it's Keene. I mean,
but it's also been happening elsewhere in New Hampshire. It's just Keene has been the largest of these things. Elsewhere, it's been maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people at most. Here, they had about 30 attendees, according to my count.
Yep.
But the full unedited speeches are there, so anybody that wants to see exactly what was said, unedited from the stage, there's only one battery change. That's the only clip in the whole thing. That's
the edited version is so much better, though.
Oh, of course it is. And then the edited version, you can see the most outrageous things and the sort of the biggest unintentional endorsements that we had from the stage. I don't even remember why I was talking about that, but it was pretty cool. You should check it out.
I mean, some of these people had no business being public speaking.
Up to 20.
Some of them just got up there and they read essays they had written. Some of them just spoke in monotone. I was like, this is the best the Democrats can conjure up for their protest is these monotonous, boring, droll individuals.
Mostly elderly.
Well, the best president they could come up with was a senile child molester.
We'll talk about that
later.
But
he's at least entertaining. None of these people were.
Go ahead, Ridley.
Anyway, the part that I called to talk about was there was just I guess recently a publicity stunt for Lily Tang Williams.
Are you talking about the skydiving?
Yeah, but they got up in a plane and carried Lily Tang Williams signs and jumped out of the plane, and they got a video of it.
That was Matt Santanastasso and I think his brother as well.
Oh, cool.
Matt is a state rep, and I believe his brother is running for state rep.
That's right. Yeah, Matt Santanastasso, of course, was one of the 2 state reps who were spearheading. I would say he was the most of the reps spearheading the secession bill.
He and Mike Sylvia.
Correct.
For sure.
But Matt was the first to kind of like be
That's
on
true,
board with it, and then we brought Mike Sylvia on as the sort of the senior legislator who'd been around the block a handful of times. And so, yeah, Matt Santanastasso is a great activist. And then again, that ties back into this weekend where they actually had anti-Santanastasso signage at this protest. So when they're protesting a specific rep because of secession. That's why they're going after him, unlike anyone else. Oh, yeah, that's why I brought up the event, because secession was mentioned from the stage on, I believe, more than one occasion.
They mentioned CACR 32 a number of times.
Yeah, so they're still talking about that, Ridley, and it's really a lot of it's thanks to you for kind of getting that ball rolling last year.
Well, thank you.
All right, man. Anything else you want to say?
That is all.
All right, thanks for the call tonight. So I guess he was pretty impressed by the jumping out of a plane for a candidate.
Is he still there by any chance? Because I'm curious
him.
if Lily Tang Williams has a campaign site. I know it's on her Twitter. And because Matt, when I'm going skydiving with him in the near future, but he ended up sending me the video of it. And it's so awesome, Matt. Awesome rock music to it. And, he was trying to skydive and get someone, holding a camera, watching him, holding the Lily Tang Williams signs and all that. But, air pressure being what it is, the sign just like exploded.
Oh my God.
It's really entertaining, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
He clearly didn't expect, I would have really thought that part of it through as well, that, I'm going to go out, holding this sign and it's going to effectively act like a mini parachute and it's going to fly out of my hands. It got ripped in half, I think, by the air pressure. It's a great video. Absolutely worth watching.
Is it on her social media?
It's on her Twitter, and
okay.
I'm not sure off the top of my head what that is. If she has a campaign site, I'd love to hear about it so I can promote that instead.
Yeah, well, I'm sure she has a website. Just offhand, I don't know what it is. Lily Tang Williams, interesting character, and again, a Free State Project mover. And that's what happens with this migration is success breeds success. Lily is one of the newer movers. She's come within the last half a decade or so. She bought a house here, so she's settled in. Brought her family up as well. And the more people like her, the more effective activists who are willing to get out there and put it on the line and do something for freedom, the more people are going to hear about what happens here in New Hampshire. The more libertarian, voluntarist, anarchist, liberty-loving people are going to migrate here, and the successes are just going to build on each other, and these statists are going to go away. They can't handle this. There's more coming up.
I just heard the best sales pitch I've heard in a long time on an airplane. The flight attendant announced, "If you paid more than $75 for your round-trip ticket, you overpaid." This is brilliant because everybody on the flight paid more, and I was struck by how all the road warriors stopped typing and reading and working and looked up. The announcement invited us to apply for the airline's credit card, and the sign-up bonus, enough frequent flyer miles for a free round trip. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. With some banks offering free credit cards, $75 is an outrage for an annual fee, but a bargain for airline tickets. For more tips on communicating more effectively, hit survivalspeech.com, where you can see how I got the CEO of another major airline to shower me with freebies. I'm Holland Cook.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
I said he was working for criminals.
You called him a criminal, did you not?
No, I don't
he
think
might have
so.
just been a sucker.
He said he was working for liars and thieves and criminals. Isn't that what we would call politicians?
They've been crooked since the dawn of time.
Agreed. So let me ask you, what is somebody who takes money to kill at the behest of liars and thieves? What do you call that person? Because a veteran is the one who called in and boxed us in the corner on this in the past. I don't have an answer to that question. That sounds very nice, at least. Do you?
Truthfully, no, I really don't have an answer to that question except to say he was doing his job.
Well, I mean, that's what they said at the Nuremberg trials, right? We were just following orders.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. You can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian Nobody and Aria in the studio here tonight. You can bring up anything that is on your mind. We do have a rule, though. We don't have a lot of rules on Free Talk Live, and there is a rule of one call per night. And if you didn't feel like you got enough time to say what you wanted to say, well, that's okay. We're here 7 nights per week. And you can
we also have the
social
social media server. We have the chat server. We have all kinds of... You can sit there and spam on our Facebook page all day and night, and we don't care. Do it.
Yeah, go at it. In fact, you
None
mentioned
of us use Facebook.
You mentioned the social media. That's social.freetalklive.com. You can head over there and sign up for an account, and it's free. It's a self-hosted server, not run by some sort of mega tech corporation. Head over to social.freetalklive.com. So let's see. We've just been taking phone calls here so far tonight. We really didn't get into any show prep yet, but there's all kinds of interesting stuff to discuss, including... Aria, you have a story about Putin on the way, but first, we'll get into what's happening in California. Reason Magazine with a report on the war on cannabis continuing in California. A lot of people just think that that's been over since, the mid-1990s when California had a ballot measure to legalize medicinal cannabis, which of course led later to legalizing actual cannabis for recreational purposes. And turns out that the war ain't over. According to a recent press release, according to Reason.com from the U.S. Department of Justice, Californians can sleep a little easier thanks to the brave work of federal and local cops who dismantled a criminal organization in San Diego County. Ryan Corner,
define criminal.
They will. The special agent in charge of...
Criminal is what the pigs are doing.
I know, but they won't admit that.
The IRS Criminal Investigation Office says the gangsters who pleaded guilty to federal felonies last week didn't care, quote, how their actions negatively impact innocent people, the community, or our society.
All of which is fundamentally false. Drugs in and of themselves don't do any of that. And if they were, legal, the harm would be drastically reduced. The main problem with the drug war isn't the drugs, it's the enforcement of the drug war.
The thing is, if a chemical isn't useful, it's perfectly legal. I mean, you can go buy Clorox, but if you drink it, it'll kill you.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not the most dangerous chemicals that they outlaw. It's the most useful ones.
Yeah,
no, caffeine, alcohol in particular is nicotine. They're both completely legal
and very deadly
and extremely addictive.
Chula Vista Police Chief Roxana Kennedy says those criminals, quote, pose a significant health and safety hazard to the public, especially our youth, unquote. But not to worry. The undersheriff...
But Pfizer is totally okay in not posing any sort of health dangers to people.
Yeah, make sure you get your next dose, because now they're going to be telling people they need to get a Pfizer or Moderna shot once every 9 months, apparently.
See, I was just thinking
nobody got time for that.
I was just thinking about the opiate crisis and the fact that these pharmaceutical companies have been pimping doctors and enticing them to prescribe more painkillers and more nerve pills and things like that in order to create an addicted population because, lifelong customers are lifelong customers.
Lifelong profits, too,
yes.
for the corporation. So the undersheriff of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department has declared that, quote, East San Diego County is safer today because of this hard work.
Did they take the day off afterward? Because that would definitely make it safer.
The FBI special agent in charge, Stacy Moy, their San Diego field office, wants you to know that, quote, the FBI is committed to keeping our community safe from the vast array of violent crimes and criminal activity which accompanies these illegal establishments.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Since the end of Prohibition, I haven't read a single story where an executive at Bacardi has had an executive at Seagram's whacked. So apparently it's not the actual chemical that causes the violence. It's the government that causes the violence. Mm-hmm. And Prohibition caused the biggest crime wave in American history until they came up with the bright idea of the war on drugs. And the war on drugs said, hold my beer and watch this.
Are they actually accusing these people of any sort of violent crime?
No.
Or are they just leaving the suggestion out there that, they were selling drugs illegally and therefore there must have been violent crime?
They were selling marijuana illegally.
One of the easiest drugs to get and one of the least linked to violent crime.
At what are being described as illegal establishments. So according to the story here,
is it pot legal in California?
Yes, it is.
Okay, but they weren't licensed.
You got it.
Okay,
it's monopoly enforcement.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. This sort of suggests that the FBI, the federal government, is actually going to turn a blind eye to the legalization industry, into the legal pot industry.
Well, they have thus far, for the most part.
That's right.
Yeah, but they haven't come out and done anything so obvious at this point, to my knowledge, that made it clear that, yes, they're...
No, there's been a policy, I think, since the Barack Obama administration that the federal enforcers, the DEA, the FBI, they will not enforce on states with legalization policies. And that's because I don't think they want to go to court. You know, like they know they could, because it's still illegal federally. So they know they could.
And the Civil War, taught the states and the federal government how the hierarchy works.
But they would still, if the person didn't take a plea deal, whoever the person selling the cannabis was, then they'd have to go to a jury of people who would be coming from the state in which that happened, and they would have to argue to that jury that even though the voters of the state, in most cases, because in most cases it wasn't done legislatively, certainly out west it was all done through the ballot process, they would then have to convince a jury of people who, many of whom probably voted to legalize marijuana, to send this person to prison. So I don't think they want to do that.
I really think that the gun and abortion issues are two issues, one for the left and one for the right, where we should be reaching out and talking jury nullification.
Sure.
Because in both cases, it's an issue where they are absolutely adamant. And it seems like the most likely areas where they would actually use jury nullification for something they believe in.
Yeah, if you can actually get somebody to go to trial, because it's just so hard to find defendants that are willing to risk going in front of a jury. And I don't blame anyone for that.
The government's scary, man.
Yeah, I don't blame anyone for doing that, for taking a plea. But I remember the last time I used to do jury nullification outreach here in Keene, New Hampshire. Every single month. I did it for more than a decade. So I hit whatever trials were there. But there were some times where it would literally be 2 months in a row where there were no jury trials.
Because people were taking plea deals.
Yeah, because there was not a single jury for which to select jurors. So they just sent the jurors home. They told them, don't come in. So I would show up at the courthouse, and no one was there except for the security agents at the courthouse. I'd say, hey, is there a trial or anything like that? No, there's no trial. I checked the docket just to make sure, and nothing going on. So
that's what happened the only time I was ever summoned for a jury. I was like, all right, great, a time to...
Where was this? Down south?
Mississippi. I was like, great, a chance to actually be a positive influence in someone's life. Because unless this person committed a violent crime, I was going to say not guilty no matter what they did, as long as it wasn't violent. But unfortunately...
You never made it.
Never made it. Took a plea deal. It's like, dude, you would have gotten off if I was on that jury.
This is one of the other nice things about New Hampshire. Now, this doesn't apply to federal court, but in New Hampshire state court, you can talk about jury nullification. It is actually something you can bring up in court, and they cannot stop you from discussing it with the jury, which is very interesting.
You can't bring that up in federal court?
Oh, no.
Why not?
No, you can't. And for most state courts, you can't bring it up there either.
Seems like they would need some sort of legal framework that they could point to and say, this is why you can't discuss that. I mean, if they want to have a fair trial, fine. The
judge just throws it out. I don't know what the excuse is.
But that means I have the right to offer up whatever defense I think is fairest to me.
Tell that to Ross Ulbricht.
Yeah. I wish I could.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could. Oh, no, you're on bail conditions, so you couldn't write Ross.
Why not?
Because you're out on bail, so I think they would block you from that.
That's unfortunate.
So they are going after illegal marijuana selling establishments. The cannabis industry, according to Reason magazine, remains completely
unlicensed businesses is what they mean.
Yes. Remains illegitimate in the eyes of the federal government. That means anyone who grows or distributes marijuana in California, even with the state's approval, is committing federal felonies every day. But even though Joe Biden wants to keep it that way, he has promised not to interfere with states that reject marijuana prohibition. So why are the feds not only busting marijuana merchants in California, but doing so in collaboration with local law enforcement agencies?
It's amazing that even in the areas where the liberals are right, Biden insists on being wrong.
The explanation, as you may have surmised, is these particular marijuana merchants were breaking state law as well as federal law. Their businesses were not just illegal, but also unlicensed.
That's what made them illegal, though.
That's what we'll get into coming up here in moments. The war on cannabis continuing in California, and you can weigh in here as well. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with the latest world news. The German government says it's concerned Russia may be planning to tighten energy supplies after Moscow claimed it needs to carry out routine maintenance on the critical Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline. The pipeline is shutting for the next 10 days after the sudden announcement from Moscow. Trent Murray in Berlin says European governments are rattled by the news.
There is real concern here that this could be a pretext for Russia cutting off gas completely. And so many officials here in Berlin are watching this maintenance very, very closely. We know just after 6 a.m. local time, technical readings showed the gas. And as I say, it is an anxious watch now to see whether that window timeframe is adhered to or whether it could go on a little bit longer.
Democrats say Tuesday's hearing on the January 6th Capitol riot will focus on how former U.S. President Donald Trump encouraged violent extremists to travel to Washington to take part in the attack. Meanwhile, former Trump strategist Steve Bannon has now said he will testify at a public hearing. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The committee argued that Trump's tweet, in which he said there was a big protest planned for January the 6th and that it would be wild, was a siren call to violent extremists. That tweet on December the 19th, the committee says, served as an invitation to far-right militant groups, including the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, members of which travelled to the US Capitol and took part in the storming of the Capitol building. Tuesday's session will also focus on the former president's connections to those groups. It comes as his former strategist, Steve Bannon, U-turned on his decision to avoid testifying, saying he would now do it publicly. He's due to stand trial next week on contempt of Congress charges for refusing for months to meet with lawmakers. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
The largest airport in the UK has warned of more flight cancellations and further disruption this summer. Staff shortages and a surge in demand after COVID travel restrictions were lifted are being blamed for the problems. John Beaver reports.
Tens of thousands of passengers in the UK have already been affected by flight delays and cancellations. Now the man in charge of Heathrow Airport has warned of more travel misery to come. Chief Executive Officer John Holland Kay was talking after dozens more flights from the airport were cancelled as they struggle with a lack of staff and rising passenger numbers. Heathrow has been forced to make a number of schedule interventions and ask airlines to cancel some flights if the airport isn't able to cope. In a bid to limit the number of last-minute cancellations, The UK government has urged airlines to make sure their schedules are deliverable.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. It was an extraordinary weekend in Sri Lanka where furious protesters engaged in an uprising targeting President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, his brother former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and the current caretaker Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Government buildings, including the presidential palace, were stormed, the Prime Minister's private residence was set ablaze and protesters swam in the president's private swimming pool. It's the culmination of public fury over corruption and economic collapse in Sri Lanka, according to Ashok Swain, a professor of peace and conflict research at Sweden's Uppsala University.
There have been several things which have happened, particularly the 2019 Easter bombing, which is a terror attack, which killed more than 200 people. And after that, there is the tourism dropped, and tourism brings $5 billion annually to the country. And then the COVID came in, then the Ukraine crisis. So all these things which led to external problems, but internally, the Rajapaksa family had taken over the country. There was no check and balances. A huge corruption was going on. And I think it was more of internal political problem, which was become much more problematic because of the external factors.
Massive uncertainty lies ahead. The demonstrators say they're staying on the streets. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And a reminder now of the hour's top stories. The German government says it's concerned Russia may be planning to tighten energy supplies after Moscow claimed it needs to carry out routine maintenance on the critical Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline. And Democrats say Tuesday's hearing on the January 6th Capitol riot will focus on how former US President Donald Trump encouraged violent extremists to travel to Washington to take part in the attack. And that's the latest world news from Feature Story News. I'm Nina Maria Potts in Washington.
Inclement weather prevents a liar from getting to work, and a lunchbox is mostly medication. Sources across the nation impatiently reported today that the 24-hour news cycle seemed to be taking forever, telling reporters that the continuous coverage from MSNBC, CNN, and other news sources was simply not continuous enough. Frustrated Americans demanded more panel coverage, around-the-clock bulletins, and breaking reactions from Twitter.
It's like, sure, I have 5 channels of unending news updates constantly flooding my screen, but each one of those only has one slow-moving news ticker. Why not 3 or 4 running at triple speed? Honestly, these networks need to understand that I can't just wait around all day for minute-by-minute coverage.
And in this week's science news, a new report finds that lake ice grows safer to venture out on with each beer consumed. In other news, the beauty industry announces a new initiative to make women self-conscious about their palms. A beautiful cinnamon bun is too good for this world, too pure. And a picky eater is 38.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. As always, you can join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about the war on cannabis, the war on marijuana.
The war on unlicensed businesses. Let's call it what it is. Did they kick in anyone's door or drive a drone into their house this time?
They may have. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they get into that in the story here from Reason.com. They appear to have gone after more than one so-called illegal business. Again, people, as you pointed out,
the Marijuana Six, we should call them.
As you pointed out, Aria, these are people who are just simply selling cannabis without asking for permission. And we know that ultimately that is the real crime in America as far as the government is concerned. If you don't ask for permission,
it's completely legal to do this thing, right? But no, you have to ask permission.
You have to get their permission slip. Specifically, you have not only just ask for permission, but you got to pay for the permission. You've got to
ask is the wrong word. You have to beg.
Yeah, you got to kiss the ring. You got to shell out whatever amount of thousands of dollars it is, because you know it ain't cheap in a place like California, right? Like it isn't like in New Hampshire. Once they finally do legalize cannabis, if they unfortunately do put in a restricted system like we're talking about here, it'll be a fraction of the cost of what they do in California. But hopefully we have enough freedom-loving people in the state legislature to head this off at the pass and actually get cannabis legalized here where there is no permission system involved. That would be the ideal way to do it, and no one, of course, has ever done it that way.
If they could do it with alcohol first, that would suggest to me that it could be done and they could succeed in that. But as it is now, if marijuana was legalized, I imagine they would use the alcohol industry as the model for it.
Yeah, they will.
And it's 100% state run.
Plan. The problem with trying to do alcohol first is that alcohol is stable, and it has been for a long time. So people are used to the way it is, so they don't really think about it.
It is cheap.
Whereas a lot of people want the situation of marijuana to change.
Yeah, that's true. Although that said, this comes back to a conversation we were having in the last hour about state representatives here in New Hampshire. We've got, according to the Democrats at this anti-Free State Project protest, they've counted 50. The Free State Project themselves is only claiming like 40 and change.
I like how they simultaneously said that we're not a fringe movement, and then a few minutes later said, but don't worry, it's just a fringe movement. As long as we unite, we can overcome them. But they're not a fringe movement, but they're totally a fringe movement.
They also said at one point, one of the speakers, the organizer of the event, said, is this Indian guy from the Middle East. He says, this is not an attack on an individual or a group. And then, in the next breath, he said something about Free Staters. But then one lady actually says that Free Staters are an invasive species.
Right-wing extremists, they called me.
Yeah, so, it was pretty clearly an attack on a group of people.
Well, just look at you. You're obviously a right-wing extremist.
Standing there with my Trans Freedom Matter sign.
How was your experience at that event as a trans person?
It was frustrating because there were a few people who, I got criticized afterward by a number of libertarians who didn't understand why I got misgendered there. That one of these people came up to me and just immediately said guys or whatever. And, 99.99% of the time, I do not care.
Yeah,
but
you can give a pass to somebody for that.
But if you're a Democrat and that cancel culture mindset is part of your entire worldview, no, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire over it. And she goes, no, I'm not being transphobic. Some of my best friends are lesbians. I swear to God, she said that, right?
Wow.
Like, okay.
As though that has anything to do with being trans?
Yeah, but that doesn't make it any better, right? And if it was just some normal person, and a libertarian was like, well, she didn't mean anything by it. No, they're the ones who say that people have to consciously be aware of exactly how they say and what words they use to describe it. They're the microaggressions people.
Yeah.
Not me, right? I'm just holding her to the standard that Democrats want to hold people to. So that was frustrating. But being held up is like, they specifically said at one point that the Free Staters are oppressing LGBTQ people or something like that. To which I said, that's not right. I didn't realize that they would interpret that as, oh, you're right. That's not right. So I had to.
You meant that is not correct.
Yeah, I quickly corrected. I was like, no, that's not correct. I know these people, and none of them are trying to oppress me or anything. And everyone turned around to go, shh. Like, wait a minute here. You can't say that I'm being oppressed and silenced and my rights are being trod upon and all of these other things. You can't have a straight cis person say that and then have the trans person in attendance say that's incorrect. And all of the other straight cis people turn around and tell me to be quiet.
Literally shush you.
Literally shush me. And
wow.
Just like, that's the level of disconnect these people are operating at. And apparently there was one of the little marshals they had was also trans. It's unclear. This person was unwilling to engage with anyone in any meaningful capacity.
Oh no, that person engaged with Joa later. But yeah, in the beginning, that person was being very quiet.
Which was weird to me because the person, and I don't want to misgender the person for being trans or anything, but I legit don't know because they were wearing a freaking mask the entire time. Are you
made it hard to understand the person as well?
Yeah, are you male to female, female to male? I don't know what to call you, and you're not making it clear to me. Like, okay, look, if you want to have a beard, okay, I'll call you he.
Inhuman because they don't have a face.
Inhuman's great, right? But it was very frustrating for that note alone. And another guy, I assume, like the speaker Muhammad there, he specifically talked about how the Free Staters were coming in and people weren't doing their research about candidates and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, right, you're singing my song here. I was like, okay, well, hi, I'm Aria DiMezzo. Okay, and you are? Hold on.
He didn't even know.
No, you're the one who's standing.
He's the chairman of the Cheshire Democratic Party, and he's, according to, I interviewed him, he has lived here for a decade. So it wasn't like he wasn't around in 2020.
And he completely missed the sheriff campaign, apparently.
With a trans person running as a Republican, making mainstream news headlines. He completely missed it.
Making exactly the point that people don't pay attention to who they're actually voting for, right? So it's just completely ignorant, completely wrapped up in their own little bubble, having no idea what's going on. And it was just amazing to watch all of this play out, right? They had some good points when they talked about that sort of thing, and the whole thing was like an advertisement for the Free State Project. It really was, and it was frustrating to be used as sort of this political football. And this isn't new to me as a trans person. The left and the right, but they both, the trans people are the tug of war that they love to fight over. But I would rather hang out, like, what else I was going to say was one of these people came up to me afterward, in between the breaks of people speaking. He was like, I just want to show you these Free Staters. They voted to table the conversion therapy bill that was put forward recently. I was like, yeah, I know. He's like, well, Jason Soros. I was like, yeah, do you know why they voted to table it? Because they wanted to kill it. No, they voted against tabling it, was what it was. It was because they wanted to kill it. So, and tabling it didn't kill it. And he was just like, well, that's not what I was. Well, I know these people. You're trying to tell me what these people who are friends of mine are trying to do to me. You're sitting here trying to convince me that these people over there want to oppress me and throw me in, pray the gay away camp or whatever. And I'm standing here telling you, no, that's fun. You don't know what you're talking about, and you're ignoring me and telling me to shush. It's completely insane.
They don't want to have, some of them don't want to have a conversation. I will give credit to some who actually were willing to speak to me that day.
None of them were willing to speak with me in any meaningful capacity. Like the one person who referenced, trans people being oppressed or whatever, the guy who tried, this is what the Free Staters voted on. Are you aware of this? He was like, well, she'll be happy to speak with you. I was like, great. I'll be right here. Send her on over. Who? I don't remember what she was. She was one of the state reps.
Oh, okay.
She immediately left the area, and she left the rally rather than have this conversation with me.
You must make them so uncomfortable.
Good. They should be uncomfortable spreading lies about trans people like that.
Well, you're calling them out on their lies, number one. But number two, you are a trans person who breaks from the mold, so to speak. You're not just... they don't know what they're going to get, right? Like, obviously, they see you.
Aria's like a box of chocolate.
Yeah. And they think one thing, and then if they actually speak to you, they will not be able to process the words coming out of your mouth because they're expecting you to say, oh, yeah, thanks for being here. I'm trans, and I appreciate what you guys are, whatever it would be that, one of the normal trans people would say to them. And you
one of them almost gave me a sign. He looked like he was going to, but then he didn't.
More coming up here in moments. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's FFF at fff.org.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to MyMagicMud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. MyMagicMud.com, FTL20.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, you can join us. You can bring up whatever you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. The war on cannabis continuing in California, despite the fact that it's quote-unquote legal. Well, as we've been saying for a long time here on Free Talk Live, and I can't speak for everybody, but I'm against legalization of cannabis because it always includes a regulatory structure. What I'm in favor of, and I think it was you, nobody, that came up with this terminology, is a depenalization or an end to all penalties, all illegality of cannabis, to essentially decriminalize it to the point where there's no criminal penalty at all for selling, for growing, for...
It's a plant.
Regulate weed like onions.
Yeah, right. It is literally just a plant. And sometimes people smoke it or do other things to it.
Exactly. Now, in California, they are cracking down, apparently, on so-called illegal businesses, people who are selling cannabis.
There's no such thing as an illegal business. There's just businesses that have and haven't paid their dues to the king. That's all it ultimately comes down to. And these people, it sounds like, did not beg the king's permission and pay the king for that permission slip.
Yep.
And Milton Friedman actually pointed out that the role of government economically in the war on drugs is they are the enforcement for the cartels. And what I mean by that is by keeping it illegal. And, they make it so only people who are willing to break the law can be in that business. They make it dangerous to compete with the cartels. And so they are the protection racket, and also, of course, the protection racket for Big Pharma, which is the biggest and most dangerous drug cartel in America.
Well, now that weed is legal, the situation hasn't really changed very much. The people that want to do business without asking for permission are being targeted because the government gang is protecting the people who have the licenses from competition. And as they point out here...
Is it really protection, though? I mean, are they really protecting the people who have the licenses, or...
Yeah, of course.
That's like saying that the mafia... Well, hold on. That's like saying that the mafia is actually protecting people by not breaking their legs if they don't pay for the right to be on the street corner or whatever.
Well, no, they're protecting them from competition by... I mean, if you're running a drug cartel, usually you have to pay a lot of money to have somebody come out and break the legs of the guy who's selling on your corner. But in Soviet America, the government will come out and break the legs of the competition for free.
No, because you have to pay for all of those licenses and stuff like that. That's exactly my point. If you want to get licensed, you can pay their dues, and they're not going to protect weed seller A from weed seller B if weed seller B is able to pay all that money to the government. They're not in it to protect weed seller A.
Weed seller C, who has not paid the government. They're protecting them in the same way that the FCC
No, they're just not punishing weed seller A and weed seller B, in my opinion.
But they're protecting them from competition by punishing other people.
Right, they're scaring people out of the marketplace or making it too difficult for people to join the marketplace. And the same thing's true in every licensed business. I mean, we're on the radio in a bunch of different marketplaces, and most of our radio stations that we know of have a government license that they got from the FCC. Yeah. God knows what cost. I mean, they had to hire a ton of attorneys and engineering firms, and it's very expensive to get an FCC license. So they certainly paid a lot of money, and they expect the FCC to protect them from any unlicensed competitors. In fact...
Well, someone who can afford the license isn't going to be able to afford being a decent competitor in the first place, right?
That's not true. It costs...
Pirate radio can rock.
Yeah, you can spend a few $100 and put a pirate radio station on the air, and it can be heard in a city like Keene. A 50-watt transmitter can be heard across the entire city and beyond. So you can absolutely compete. In fact, what happens in the case of pirate radio broadcasters is usually the complaints that are sent into the FCC come from...
Other radio stations?
Yeah, the licensed radio stations. It's not the listeners that are complaining about it. It's the people who have the permission slip. They're mad. I mean, we had to pay $100,000 to go on the air in this market, and this schmo shows up for $3,000 and he's got his own broadcasting, station, and they get very upset about that. It's slave-on-slave violence in that particular case. But that's also true in the cab business. Look at Uber and Lyft when they came into the cab industry. They didn't ask for permission. They just said, oh, well, we've got this completely new model. It doesn't apply to all the regulations, so why should we ask for a cab license? We're just going to go into business and, start giving people rides. And before you knew it, they were a huge success story. Now, I don't know if they've made a profit yet, but they were still successful as far as getting people to use their services. And the cabbies were so pissed. They went into various different government, city councils and such, and they lobbied to change the regulations to apply to Uber and Lyft. And in the meantime, they were literally targeting Uber and Lyft by attacking their drivers and things like that, smashing their...
I actually have an article about this. It's not worth getting into tonight, I don't think, but Uber was pretty underhanded and shady during this entire thing as well. I mean, they were doing their own lobbying. They were egging people on. They were saying, it would be great for our cause if we could get these cabbies to attack some of our drivers. So, I mean... They probably planted those cabbies or paid them. I don't think so. I mean, the emails are out there. All of it's been leaked at this point, where they're like, hey, guys, it would be very good for us, hint, hint, if one of our guys got attacked by a cabbie.
Well, that maybe they set some of it up, but some of it was real. I mean, it happened to people here in New Hampshire, and that's because the cabbies were mad because Uber was encroaching in on their territory that they paid a license for. So anyway, that's what this all comes down to.
I prefer Uber to taxis. Like twice in my life, I've tried to use an actual taxi service, and they were like, "Oh, it's going to be about an hour and a half before a driver can get out there." I'm like, Jesus. Where in Uber, it's like 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Look, I'm not taking.
I'm too
Uber
dangerous to drive for Uber, so I don't give them money anymore.
Yeah, I don't care for Uber as a corporation. I only appreciate the fact that they did innovate in a space that desperately needed that innovation. But anyone can enter that, or should be able to enter these fields. And that's what licenses do, is they keep out competition. They keep out the guys that don't have a lot of money. They keep out the poor people that just want to start their own business, maybe selling some cannabis out of their house or whatever. And the point here that Reason.com makes is the fact that unlicensed pot dealers continue to thrive in California is testimony to the ways in which the state has botched their legalization. Most local governments in California do not allow recreational sales at all, and even those that do frequently impose caps that artificially limit the supply, meaning caps on the number of businesses that can exist within a certain area. Bureaucratic barriers, costly regulations, and high taxes are daunting deterrents for weed dealers who otherwise might be inclined to go legit. So it's just too much of a hassle for these people, or impossible, to acquire a license. And so they continue selling cannabis because that's what they know. They probably were selling it back when it was illegal across the state, and they try to do it legally, and they can't. We can talk more about the bureaucratic barriers to being legit in the cannabis industry and driving business underground, where they're then targeted by the police. It's Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp, is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with the latest world news. The German government says it's concerned Russia may be planning to tighten energy supplies after Moscow claimed it needs to carry out routine maintenance on the critical Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline. The pipeline is shutting for the next 10 days after the sudden announcement from Moscow. Trent Murray in Berlin says European governments are rattled by the news.
There is real concern here that this could be a pretext for Russia cutting off gas completely. And so many officials here in Berlin are watching this maintenance very, very closely. We know just after 6 a.m. local time, technical readings showed the gas did start to slow down. And as I say, it is an anxious watch now to see whether that window timeframe is adhered to or whether it could go on a little bit longer.
Democrats say Tuesday's hearing on the January 6th Capitol riot will focus on how former U.S. President Donald Trump encouraged violent extremists to travel to Washington to take part in the attack. Meanwhile, former Trump strategist Steve Bannon has now said he will testify at a public hearing. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The committee argued that Trump's tweet, in which he said there was a big protest planned for January the 6th and that it would be wild, was a siren call to violent extremists. That tweet on December the 19th, the committee says, served as an invitation to far-right militant groups, including the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, members of which travelled to the US Capitol and took part in the storming of the Capitol building. Tuesday's session will also focus on the former president's connections to those groups. It comes as his former strategist, Steve Bannon, U-turned on his decision to avoid testifying, saying he would now do it publicly. He's due to stand trial next week on contempt of Congress charges for refusing for months to meet with lawmakers. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
The largest airport in the UK has warned of more flight cancellations and further disruption this summer. Staff shortages and a surge in demand after COVID travel restrictions were lifted are being blamed for the problems. John Beaver reports.
Tens of thousands of passengers in the UK have already been affected by flight delays and cancellations. Now the man in charge of Heathrow Airport has warned of more travel misery to come. Chief Executive Officer John Holland Kay was talking after dozens more flights from the airport were cancelled as they struggle with a lack of staff and rising passenger numbers. Heathrow has been forced to make a number of schedule interventions and ask airlines to cancel some flights if the airport isn't able to cope. In a bid to limit the number of last-minute cancellations, the UK government has urged airlines to make sure their schedules are deliverable.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. We're talking about the situation with cannabis being partially illegal still in California and also every other state where it's been legalized. And what I mean by that is people who are selling cannabis without asking for government permission are still committing felonies in those places. And a recent story from Reason.com is digging into what has been happening with federal agencies like the IRS and the FBI teaming up with local cops in California to bust people who just simply wanted to sell some plants, some flowers.
Some naturally growing, natural, organic flowers.
Yep. From their homes, I would guess. I mean, because it probably is difficult to rent a place and open up your doors without. I don't know if they get into like what these stores were that they're talking about, or these illegal. What was the term? Illegal establishments. So I'm guessing they're people just selling out of their homes. But if you want to weigh in, maybe you are down there in California and you've seen some of these raids happen. Maybe you know some of the people who've been targeted. You're certainly welcome to join us here. Again, the number is 603-283-6160. Here tonight, by the way, it is Ian.
Nobody.
And Arya.
And coming up in 2 days in Vegas, Freedom Fest is happening again. It's a huge event happening in the Mirage in Las Vegas. Back in Vegas, by the way, it went to South Dakota for last year since Vegas was insane with COVID crackdowns and South Dakota wasn't so much. But they've moved back to Vegas and they're going to be having what they call the world's largest gathering of free minds. I would add in a hotel to that because I'm pretty sure PorcFest has them beat at this point. The Porcupine Freedom Festival sold out this year. Freedom Fest still has tickets available, and you can get them for $50 off their regular rate by using code FTL50. But it's a big event. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but not 3,500 big or whatever the Porcupine Freedom Festival has.
The one I went to in 2019 was like over 2,000, though. So, I mean, it is no slouch. It is definitely a big event. Lots of people attending. Lots of great speakers like John Cleese, Senator Rand Paul, Glenn Beck, Spike Cohen, Justin Amash, and many more. You can go to freedomfest.com. Their conference theme this year is Turning the Tide. Our very own Mark Edge is going to be speaking about locating liberty, and you'll be able to see everything from a film festival to various social events, big debates, world-class speakers, the trade show for liberty, and more. Once again, freedomfest.com, code FTL50 for $50 off your tickets. All right, so going back here to the Reason.com story about these quote-unquote illegal establishments in California that have been raided, that have been taken down by state agencies and the feds. So what they're pointing out here is that California is Yeah, they were one of the first states to legalize cannabis, but they were also one of the worst systems.
Well, of course, it's California. That's what they do. If they have a good idea, they screw up the implementation of it.
Yeah, some governments locally, because they allow local governments to decide, oh yeah, we don't want cannabis sales here. So some of them don't even allow it at all. Others have a very small limit on the number of stores that can exist. So once they've got 3 or whatever, or 2, that's it. And, of course, those are going to their friends, right? Those licenses are going to the buddies of the city council members. Bureaucratic barriers, high taxes, these are all deterrents for people that would otherwise decide to open their doors legally. So these burdens, combined with local bans, explain why unlicensed sales still account for 2/3, almost 2/3 of the marijuana purchased in the state of California.
I believe it. I mean, when you screw it up as badly as California did, you're not eliminating the black market.
No, not only are you not eliminating it, but you're giving it incentives to continue because you can sell the weed cheaper in the black market because you don't have to apply for all these licenses. You don't have to jump through all the ridiculous hoops, have all the mandatory packaging, have all the inspections, all these things cost money, and that pushes the cost of the cannabis up.
And the truth be told, as long as there are laws to break, I will buy my weed illegally because I just object to the idea that, oh, we're going to have 100-year genocide against you people for smoking weed. But no, now we've changed our mind. We're going to tell you how to do it right.
And tax you.
Because, they didn't ruin enough lives with what they were already doing.
Yep. As a recent report from Reason Foundation, California has 1 licensed recreational outlet per 29,282 residents, compared to 1 per 13,800 some in Colorado and 1 per 6,145 in Oregon. So there's way more cannabis available to the average person in the other states because their regulatory schemes aren't as oppressive. They still are bad, but they're not as bad as California.
It sounds like California did everything they could to avoid actually legalizing. I mean, they legalized it, sure, but they still made it as hard for people to get it as they possibly could have gotten away with.
Worse, the report adds California's stores are distributed unevenly across the state, leading to massive cannabis deserts where, quote, consumers have no access to a legal retailer within a reasonable distance of their home, unquote. Instead of addressing the problems, California officials are cracking down on marijuana suppliers who fail to get the government's permission to sell pot, even when such permission is difficult or impossible to obtain. And they're waging that war on weed with help of federal agencies that view every marijuana business, licensed or not, as a criminal enterprise.
That's funny because I view every federal agency as a criminal enterprise.
I also did not license them.
The Justice Department reports Shahram Shaikhan and Sabriana Williams pleaded guilty to participating in a marijuana distribution conspiracy. Shaikhan faces, quote,
that's just a conspiracy theory.
40 years in prison with a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years and a $5 million fine. And the other lady,
$5 million is well beyond the ability of most people to ever pay back.
They know that. That makes you a slave to the state for the rest of your life beyond normal taxation. Quote, the other woman faces 20 years in prison and a $1 million fine. Their convictions were part of, quote, an ongoing investigation by federal and state authorities targeting unlicensed, illegal marijuana dispensaries throughout Southern California. So
they can drop the illegal part. I mean, it's just unlicensed at this point, and being unlicensed is what made them illegal. I want them to be more upfront about that, more honest about it.
They won't be.
I know, but
this is the Federal Department of Justice.
I know,
unquote.
But the only thing these people did was not have the license.
Right. Yeah, they didn't rip anybody off. Nobody said that they stole from them or murdered them or held them hostage or something like that. But yet this guy is facing 40 years and his associate 20 years in federal prison. At the same time, the very same government agencies, or the very same government gang in the federal government gang, has been complaining about a woman being arrested in Russia for possession of vape cartridges. Did you hear about this one?
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's like, is that okay now so long as you're in Russia?
Yeah, they're apparently trying to, negotiate a thing for her or whatever. They are upset that this WNBA person has been arrested in Russia. And like, okay, well, yeah, that's great that you care about this person, but what about the thousands, tens of thousands of people who are sitting in prison cells operated by the very same criminal enterprise, the federal government, for the same exact things, for having or selling vape cartridges? Because that's true. There are people in prison for that. They're trying to put this guy away for 40 years for selling probably some vape cartridges or some flowers.
Yep. Just for not having a license, that's all it comes down to.
From 2019 to 2020, the Justice Department says that, quote, Shaikan and Williams, along with others, operated an unlicensed, illegal marijuana business known as Canaland, which functioned primarily as a wholesale supplier. Okay, so they did actually go, openly operate as a wholesale supplier of marijuana and marijuana products to unlicensed and illegal marijuana dispensaries in Southern California. Additionally, Canaland operated as an unlicensed illegal marijuana dispensary in its own right, serving individual customers. So how dare they? How dare they acquire plants and sell them to voluntarily operating individuals and businesses? They should go to prison. Does anyone actually believe this? Does anyone out there listening to the show, besides our federal agents listening, actually believe in this? And even you guys, do you believe in this? It's Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgoristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agorist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agorist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgoristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agorist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgoristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgoristHosting.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Bring up whatever you want. Something I think we should cover tonight, if we get the chance, is this new Hunter Biden leak. Not the laptop that got delivered to the computer repair center that he forgot about because he's, on crack or whatever and just totally forgot that he left his laptop there.
Well, I mean, he's a spoiled son of a president, right?
Absolutely.
Millions of dollars mean nothing to him. He took his laptop to a repair shop. He forgot about it. Yes, because he's on crack, but also because Daddy just will buy him a new laptop. What does it matter to him?
And it may not be Daddy. It may actually be Hunter Biden that's sort of making a lot of the money, apparently, for the family, is what I saw the other night. But
the Ukraine will buy him another laptop if he gets Daddy to send him another few billion.
With the millions that he's been getting paid, tens of millions from the Ukrainian power company, I think it was, or something like that. But anyway,
now there's a war in Ukraine.
That and $5 million from the wife of the mayor of Moscow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he got paid off by a lot of people. Interestingly enough, one of the things that he was investing in the Ukraine was biolabs. The biolabs that they first denied first they denied they existed, and then they said, "Oh yeah, we're actually running those to get rid of some Soviet era bioweapons." And it's like, Soviet era bioweapons? So you've been running those things for 20 years? Have you made any progress at all?
Apparently the 4chan people got into Hunter Biden's iCloud account, which, for those that don't know, if you have an iPhone or some other device, a Mac or something like that, then you can connect your device to this iCloud. And I think they probably do it by default. I've never had one of these things, but I'm pretty sure it's a popular thing. And then just back up everything to the iCloud. So photos, videos, whatever.
Which is a terrible idea.
It's not very secure.
It's what has the back door in it that allows the FBI, because there was this issue a number of years ago about Apple refusing to decrypt their phones for the FBI.
That's right, yeah.
So what they ended up doing instead,
after a shooting.
Yes, what they ended up doing instead was they don't encrypt these backups. So these backups that are on iCloud, they can turn over to the FBI because they're not encrypted. Your phone is still encrypted, but that backup is not.
Well, also, Apple has been talking about, I don't know if they're doing it yet, scanning users' phones for kiddie porn.
Yep.
They've been talking about it, but I mean, that's
a bad thing. But if they can scan it for kiddie porn, they can scan it for anything.
That's right.
And if they can scan it, then they can get a subpoena to scan it.
Yeah, but that's going to lead to problems for people like Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. So I'm not sure they're going
to be on the white list.
I mean, good God, this Maxwell woman is going to prison for 20 years to pimping out kids to nobody. Not me, the other one.
Anyway, they got into like 500 gigabytes, apparently, of data on Hunter's iCloud. They apparently downloaded
That
the
is
thing.
a lot of photos and videos.
Yeah, and they apparently downloaded this and are sharing a torrent
I hope they
access
covered up
to
their
it.
tracks well, because heads are going to roll over this.
Well, some people are worried about downloading it because they're worried about what this guy's got on his
That's
iPhone.
also,
well, that's the other thing, is you're not on the white list, so there's
Right.
there could be
They'll come after you.
a wide variety of things on there that Hunter Biden will never go to prison for,
Right,
but
you will.
might.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be interesting to learn more about
The
this.
FBI has some competition, it sounds like, for that being the world's largest distributor of child porn title.
It'll be interesting
Now
to see
it's
how this develops. though.
uTorrent or
You know,
whatever.
What's going to come out? What files will be released? They've already released something that some obviously people are claiming, oh, it's fake, and we don't know because we haven't looked through the files ourselves, and even those could.
I'm not going to. It's not worth it to me.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But so we kind of just have to, whether you believe this or not, what they're saying is that in Hunter Biden's messaging, right? So the messaging app, just SMS, right? In this SMS app, you get the conversations with the names on them, right? That you're having with people. Some
Good
of them are
Lord, he was
groups.
backing up his chats.
I think what they did was maybe it must have been. Anyway, maybe this thing was completely fabricated. I don't know.
The son
Aria.
of the president should have more tech knowledge than to back up his text messaging to iCloud.
But supposedly, in these
Presidenting
chats,
isn't really that technically demanding a business. You have people.
I
to do
said
that.
should. I didn't say would.
So here's the big reveal so far from this 500 gigabytes of data, besides more apparently video and or pictures of Hunter Biden buying crack and his penis or whatever, besides what you would expect to be found on this data, there were messages that were being had with someone by the name of Pedo Peter, as in pedophile, P-E-D-O, Pedo Peter, and Jill Biden with Hunter Biden. So the theory is that Pedo Peter is Joe Biden, but like under a pseudonym, right? Like that he saved his dad's number into his phone as Pedo Peter. Now, whether that's true
It should
or
be
not,
fairly easy to determine whether or not that is true, though. I mean, unless his dad, Joe Biden, is using multiple phone numbers and multiple cell phones, which doesn't seem possible for Joe Biden. I mean, he's a bit clueless.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, it seems impossible for Joe Biden to actually accomplish that. But on the other hand, they're into a lot of illegal stuff.
But Joe Biden, the guy who talks about kids stroking his leg hair, I don't believe for a minute that he would be able to. Oh no, I can't send that text message. This isn't my child porn phone. I need my official phone or whatever. This is Joe Biden we're talking about. He would have made a mistake at some point.
He can't remember not to molest children when the cameras are running.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, there's video. Of course, a lot of this came out before the election, but people voted for him anyway. Literal video of him sniffing little
it was
children.
Russian disinformation, you know.
But it was joebiden.info.
Yeah.
That was the website. I imagine it still exists.
I don't care if the Russians put it up. It's real. It seemed real video to me.
And it's all really cringy.
Yeah.
It's disgusting stuff.
Let's go on here. We got Olivia. But if you want to look into deeper into this, hashtag Pedo Peter on Twitter right now. There's a lot of posts about this. Anyway,
okay, I can use Twitter.
Go ahead, Olivia, in Arizona.
Hey. Yeah, hey, so I was researching Ross Ulbricht because you guys mention him pretty regularly.
Yeah,
and
the creator of the Silk Road, the underground drug marketplace that is now spending 2 life sentences plus 40 years in federal prison for making a website. That Ross Ulbricht.
Yes, and not just him, but there's actually a group photo on his website of other people who are serving life sentences for nonviolent drug offenses, including a guy in a wheelchair, of all things. Real danger to society there. Yep. And I thought this was really interesting. Every day at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, they set a clock and they all sit together and take a few moments to pray or to visualize Ross and the other nonviolent prisoners walking free. And I thought, I really believe in the power of that. And I think it would be really awesome if all the listeners out there, just when the show goes off tonight and every night, to just visualize him and these other victims of the victimless crime, war on victimless crime, to see them going free and rejoining their families who miss them and love them very much.
Yeah, it's a beautiful vision, and I hope that someday some sort of compassion can be brought to those people and they can be released from this insane system.
Oh, one other thing. He also makes really amazing art. Like, he's quite an artist. And he sells those, he sells pictures, like print, well, not him, but whoever's running his website sells prints of his art. And I think the Shire Free Church needs at least one of those to hang up, so I might donate one to the church at some point.
Cool. freeross.org, I imagine, is the website you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a crazy story for listeners out there that aren't familiar with it. It's a deep, insane, just mess of a story, and
it only gets more insane the deeper you get into it. Like
the corruption from the feds and all of that, and the court with the judge that just wouldn't even allow the defense to put on a case. I mean, the whole thing was corrupt from top to bottom, and this poor young guy is in prison for now almost a decade of his life, and will be spending the rest of his life there unless, as you say, Olivia, something changes.
Or the government falls. Well, okay, that's something changing.
Yeah, that would be a big change. Olivia, anything else you want to share?
No, I think that's good.
Thanks for calling about Ross. Definitely appreciate hearing from you.
And sadly, I think the collapse of the U.S. government is probably the most likely of the possible scenarios that would lead to Ross being free. Otherwise, a compassionate president to pardon him?
Never.
Man, that seems unlikely.
You don't get elected president if you have compassion.
Great point.
But the collapse of the U.S., a bit more likely.
Hopefully it'll be in our lifetime. There's more coming up here in moments. 603-283-6160. You can join us, share your thoughts. This is Free Talk Live. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with the latest world news. The German government says it's concerned Russia may be planning to tighten energy supplies after Moscow claimed it needs to carry out routine maintenance on the critical Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline. The pipeline is shutting for the next 10 days after the sudden announcement from Moscow. Trent Murray in Berlin says European governments are rattled by the news.
There is real concern here that this could be a pretext for Russia cutting off gas completely. And so many officials here in Berlin are watching this maintenance very, very closely. We know just after 6 a.m. local time, technical readings showed the gas did start to slow down. And as I say, it is an anxious watch now to see whether that window timeframe is adhered to or whether it could go on a little bit longer.
Democrats say Tuesday's hearing on the January 6th Capitol riot will focus on how former U.S. President Donald Trump encouraged violent extremists to travel to Washington to take part in the attack. Meanwhile, former Trump strategist Steve Bannon has now said he will testify at a public hearing. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The committee argued that Trump's tweet, in which he said there was a big protest planned for January the 6th and that it would be wild, was a siren call to violent extremists. That tweet on December the 19th, the committee says, served as an invitation to far-right militant groups, including the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, members of which travelled to the US Capitol and took part in the storming of the Capitol building. Tuesday's session will also focus on the former president's connections to those groups. It comes as his former strategist, Steve Bannon, U-turned on his decision to avoid testifying, saying he would now do it publicly. He's due to stand trial next week on contempt of Congress charges for refusing for months to meet with lawmakers. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
The largest airport in the UK has warned of more flight cancellations and further disruption this summer. Staff shortages and a surge in demand after COVID travel restrictions were lifted are being blamed for the problems. John Beaver reports.
Tens of thousands of passengers in the UK have already been affected by flight delays and cancellations. Now the man in charge of Heathrow Airport has warned of more travel misery to come. Chief Executive Officer John Holland Kay was talking after dozens more flights from the airport were cancelled as they struggle with a lack of staff and rising passenger numbers. Heathrow has been forced to make a number of schedule interventions and ask airlines to cancel some flights if the airport isn't able to cope. In a bid to limit the number of last-minute cancellations, the UK government has urged airlines to make sure their schedules are deliverable.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. It was an extraordinary weekend in Sri Lanka where furious protesters engaged in an uprising targeting President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, his brother former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and the current caretaker Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Government buildings, including the presidential palace, were stormed, the Prime Minister's private residence was set ablaze and protesters swam in the president's private swimming pool. It's the culmination of public fury over corruption and economic collapse in Sri Lanka, according to Ashok Swain, a professor of peace and conflict research at Sweden's Uppsala University.
There have been several things which have happened, particularly the 2019 Easter bombing, which is a terror attack which killed more than 200 people. And after that, there is the tourism dropped, and tourism brings $5 billion annually to the country. And then the COVID came in, then the Ukraine crisis. So all these things which led to external problems, but internally, the Rajapaksa family had taken over the country. There was no check and balances. A huge corruption was going on. And I think it was more of internal political problem, which was become much more problematic because of the external factors.
Massive uncertainty lies ahead. The demonstrators say they're staying on the streets. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And a reminder now of the hour's top stories. The German government says it's concerned Russia may be planning to tighten energy supplies after Moscow claimed it needs to carry out routine maintenance on the critical Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline. And Democrats say Tuesday's hearing on the January 6th Capitol riot will focus on how former US President Donald Trump encouraged violent extremists to travel to Washington to take part in the attack. And that's the latest world news from Feature Story News. I'm Nina Maria Potts in Washington.
Now Facebook is rolling out their newest feature, LifePoint, which analyzes users' histories to determine exactly when things went wrong. The new feature combs through photos, status updates, likes, everything that you put on Facebook in order to pinpoint how someone irreparably ruined their life. For example, it might highlight your friend's spring break trip in 2003 when she took her first shot, or your cousin's engagement to a guy named Scott spelled with a K.
So, Facebook must have a lot of depressing information to work with. Well, we look for sadness indicators, positive versus negative adjectives and status updates, whether you've liked a corporate entity such as Walmart or Arby's.
One of LifePoint's most buzzed about features is the Life Compare function, which lets you see how your mistakes stack up to others.
Here, I'm overlaying my graph with a graph of a childhood friend. You can see his life ended up much worse than mine, which is great.
Anything with a profile has a life point, so you can look forward to finding out when your favorite bands, TV shows, and companies started going downhill.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour here, and as always, you're invited if you want to join us. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Aria.
You can join us online anytime you want. Just go to freetalklive.com and you can grab archives there. You can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners on our social media, on our chat server, and more. Just go to freetalklive.com to do that. In the last hour, we started a story from Reason.com. Got a lot of conversations started about the continuing war on cannabis that is going on in California, where a lot of people would say, what do you mean? Cannabis is legal there. And it is, with many restrictions. Some cities don't even allow cannabis sales.
Cannabis is legal. Being unlicensed is not.
Nope, and it's going to get you 40 or 20 some years in prison, according to the Justice Department, having arrested people for running a business called Cannaland. A man named Shahram Shaikhan and Sabriana Williams are facing decades in prison and millions of dollars in fines for simply selling a plant, selling some flowers, selling probably some oils and things like that to both wholesalers, to retail stores, and also to individuals, direct sales. And the feds and the local cops went in there and acted like these people were somehow criminals and that there's somehow some sort of danger to the things that they were doing. The same old drug war propaganda.
Well, there is a danger. They can put you in prison for that.
Yeah, I don't
but
think
that's not what they
meant.
mean when they say danger.
No, that's they're trying to make people that are just seeing the news think that people who are selling weed without permission slips are dangerous and it's risky to buy from them. They only want you to buy from the legal stores. But interestingly, the studies have been done that show that Californians that buy cannabis, roughly 2/3 of them do not buy from legal establishments. Roughly 2/3 of the marijuana sold in California is sold still on the black market. And rather than accept that as evidence of the failure of the system that they've created and a need to lessen the restrictions, a need to lower the barriers to entry, and of course I would think they should abolish them entirely, but we're talking about California here, and we know that's never going to happen there. But no, they've not done that at all. Instead, they're doubling down, cracking down, and arresting peaceful people.
Well, of course. I mean, that's what the government does. And again, it all ultimately just comes down to the fact that these people, this couple, started their business and did not have the government's permission. That's it. Cannabis is legal there. The FBI, the federal government, they're not enforcing cannabis laws in the state of California where it's legal. They're not doing any of that. However, if you don't have that business permission, if you don't have that little business, what permission slip is the word I'm looking for, they're going to arrest you and threaten this guy with 40 years in prison or 20 years for his partner.
And they go on, they talk about another person here. I'm just going to skip down the story a ways because there's plenty of examples of this happening. It isn't just these two people. There's another guy named Lance Kachi who admitted to operating multiple unlicensed, illegal marijuana dispensaries.
So they all took plea deals.
Of course. To show us...
You never want to do that.
To show us how nefarious Mr. Kachi's activities were, the Justice Department emphasizes he took in lots of cash. Kachi and his co-conspirators grossed millions of dollars.
Cash is their currency. They don't get to say that there's something shady about accepting their currency as payment.
Just like they're
even a stopped clock is right twice a day.
Just like they're trying to do in the Crypto 6 case, Aria, just the fact that a lot of money was involved is presented to people as, well, they must have been doing something wrong. You can't make money unless you're corrupt or a bad person.
Or you're doing something useful to society.
People.
What was that, nobody?
Or one of the special people. Some people are allowed to make money.
Sure.
But
the ones that have government permission slips.
Yeah, you have to be related to the Bidens or the Clintons or
Or the Bushes.
Several times a week, they said about him that he and others would meet at various hotels, where they would spend hours counting hundreds of thousands of dollars in dispensary proceeds using automated money counters. Before leaving the room with bags of money, the defendants would pack up their money counters, as well as the various notes they took to account for their profits and expenses, such as the cost of armed security. He observes that primary motivation of drug traffickers is greed.
That's the primary motivation for every human being who's ever existed, first of all. But second, what did these guys, they sold some pot. And, oh no, they got cash for doing that. So they're criminals. This is slander.
A profit motive, as Reason points out, is by no means unique to unlicensed marijuana businesses, and neither are bags of money. Due to the dearth of banking services, duly licensed pot dealers in California and other states commonly operate this way, meaning that bankers don't want to do business with marijuana dealers.
It's not just that they don't want to, but they can be prosecuted in the federal system.
They're afraid to.
And they can lose their banking license, which that's what makes them the special people who are allowed to make money.
In the same way that bankers don't want to deal with Bitcoin-related businesses, because they're afraid of what the federal government gang might do to them.
Also sex workers?
I think in the case of Bitcoin, it's more that they're afraid of what Bitcoin's going to do to them.
Well, I mean, that could very well be true, but it is definitely a concern. We did talk to one bank president here in the Keene area, and this was long before the Crypto 6 raid. It was a meeting that Chris Reitman and I had with a local bank president who expressed that, if they don't understand what wire transfers are for, then they just don't feel comfortable doing it because the feds can fine them. They can prosecute them.
Doesn't matter if it's illegal or not. It makes their stomach feel funny, and they don't like it.
Kennedy claims these operations posed a threat to our youth. While unauthorized pot shops may be less punctilious about checking customers' IDs than licensed retailers are, the Justice Department's announcement doesn't include any allegations of distribution to minors. The closest it comes is a complaint that, quote, many unlicensed pot stores have opened up near our schools.
You know what's a threat to our youth? Prison.
The school system?
That too.
Kennedy also says, quote, illegal marijuana dispensaries have been responsible for numerous complaints by our community members, unquote, though she doesn't specify the nature of those complaints. And
so they don't like seeing
they're
businesses.
muscling in on their territory. All the complaints are coming from surely
the licensed businesses.
From the privileged businesses.
Yeah, almost a guarantee. So anyway, it of course goes on with other examples. I'll post the full story for you if you want to take a look at it.
So these people basically did nothing wrong.
No, they never hurt anybody.
It all comes down to the fact that they did not have the government permission slip. And now their lives are destroyed. They're facing millions of dollars in fines and decades in prison for not having their paperwork in order and not bowing to the king and demanding permission from the crown. Or begging permission from the crown, rather.
The final statement here from the Justice Department implies that unlicensed marijuana dealers pose a special threat to public safety. It complains the federal government is not getting its cut of the profits. Quote, all the various defendants admitted that they had an obligation to report their income to the IRS, as well as pay taxes on any income derived from these illegal businesses, which they failed to do. And as compensation, the defendants, quote, agreed to forfeit seized cash, which currently exceeds $5 million.
Always remember to pay the government for security services, because otherwise they become your landlord, and they're even worse at providing housing than they are at providing security.
So all of these people, it does sound like they took a plea in this case, and
that's sad.
Sounds as though they are still awaiting sentencing at this point, so we don't know if they're going to get 40 years.
It seems unlikely.
They were promised something lower in return for taking that plea deal and admitting that they did something quote-unquote wrong, rather than going and risking going in front of a jury of their supposed peers, which, of course, we know they do their best to stack the jury with a bunch of statists and people that love the government. So, again, I don't blame anybody for taking a plea, but it would seem to me like if you're selling cannabis, one of the best places to take a case to trial would be a state in which it's legal, because then at the very least you know that on the jury, the odds are somebody there voted for that. Yeah. Somebody on that jury said, this war on drugs is stupid. We ought to legalize this. But they didn't. They took the plea. More coming up here in moments. The number is 603-283-6160. Nobody, you mentioned Russian propaganda earlier tonight, and Aria, you've got an update from Russia. What's going on with old Putin out there? They're saying he doesn't want to be called president anymore. What's the new title going to be? We'll get into it. 603-283-6160. You can join us here on Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at MyMagicMud.com. FTL20, MyMagicMud.com.
Nobody loves their cable company except for internet access. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. To find what you want to watch, rather than the several hundred channels your cable or satellite menu force feeds you, explore cordcuttersnews.com. It's a buyer's guide for spending less or spending nothing on television. Founder Luke Bouma told me that for the vast majority of Americans, everything they want to watch is available streaming. The only reason many still subscribe to cable or satellite is live sports, and many team channels now offer streaming. Some cord cutters do end up paying cable-size money, but what they end up with is 100% their menu. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Join us on phones, the number 603-283-6160, or you can join us online anytime over at freetalklive.com. Once again, if you want to get on the air with us here tonight, 603-283-6160. Whether you want to talk about the insane war on cannabis that continues in states like California and Colorado and elsewhere. They just reported on California, but they're still arresting unlicensed dealers in those other places.
Oh, yeah.
With you tonight, it is Ian.
Nobody.
And Arya.
Arya, you had a story tonight that you wanted to get into, and we're going to do that about Putin and what he wants to be called now instead of president. But first, I do want to let you know about the upcoming event that's happening in October, the Free Cities Foundation's annual conference. It's called Liberty in Our Lifetime. And it's happening October 21st through the 23rd in the beautiful city of Prague. Our very own Mark Edge is going to be speaking at that event, and you can join him out there for an event themed Parallel Structures for Progress, where they're going to be showcasing autonomous cities and intentional communities that are springing up around the world, helping people find alternatives for better ways to learn, educate their children, and invest in the future. You can get a discount, 20% off of the tickets by using code FTL20 when you check out through lifetimeliberty.com, code FTL20, and you can go meet Mark in Prague, October 21st through the 23rd. Again, lifetimeliberty.com with code FTL20. So what's going on with Putin there, Arya?
Well, he doesn't want to be called it suggests that he doesn't want to be called president, but he didn't actually do this. Anyway, the Liberal Democratic Party has proposed the use of Pravitel, a Russian title, as it is more befitting of Putin's status and role as opposed to calling Putin the president. The right-wing party, that's the Liberal Democratic Party, has only 22 seats in Russia's 450-seat parliament, but it has close ties to the Kremlin and is often used by the government to float engaged public support for radical ideas.
I see. So they're moving the Overton window,
yes,
as it's called.
Russian media quoted the LDPR as saying the term president was first used at the end of the 18th century in the United States and much later spread throughout the world. In our country, by historical standards, this is generally a new word, the Telegraph reports. I mean, why not just call him the Tsar or whatever?
Bring that one back.
Yeah, wouldn't that be more historically accurate for Russia?
The Commissar.
The anti-West sentiment follows the national mood in Russia, which is being pushed by the Kremlin to counter sanctions placed on it since its invasion of Ukraine. Vladimir Zhirinovsky, the leader of the LDPR, died in April. He was an arch-nationalist and close to Putin. And Putin went to his funeral, apparently. As well as supporting the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine, Zhirinovsky wanted Russia to reclaim northern Kazakhstan. Of course, the title Pravitel, I don't know why the Metro decided to give me all of that background information about this random dude. Yeah. But and then they jump right back into the main story here. Mm-hmm. The title of Pravitel, or ruler, has a deep history in Russia. The Romanov family ruled the nation as Tsars, as we just pointed out.
There it is.
With near total power for nearly 3 centuries, Tsar can carry a similar meaning to Pravitel, but is more commonly known as emperor. In contrast, president, with its connotations of democracy, only came into use in Russia towards the end of the Soviet Union, when Mikhail Gorbachev was briefly referred to as president of the USSR. What was his other title?
I don't know.
Here it is. Previously, good for them. They did something right. Previously, Soviet leaders had been the Communist Party chairman or general secretary. Putin's critics have said that he already has total power in Russia and rules like an autocratic Tsar. So, to them, Pravitel is more fitting based on how Putin, actually rules. I like the idea.
Don't they at least have like the semblance of elections there, though?
They do, but then he throw the opposition leader in prison or something. It's just like they did in Ukraine.
They did that
as
in
well.
Ukraine. I know that, but it wouldn't surprise me if Putin did the same thing.
I'm pretty sure he did the same thing in Russia.
Okay.
I like this word Pravitel because it means
it's okay when it happens in Ukraine, though.
Yes. Well, it's okay to the Americans.
Yeah. When they literally outlaw the opposition parties.
Yes.
They did that.
They did that in Ukraine, yes, and no one really cried out. But I like Pravitel. It means our ruler, and ruler is a lot more accurate than president and leader, and because that's what they call Kim Jong-il or Kim Jong-un, whichever it is now. It's dear leader, and that's what people in the United States and in the West in general refer to their politicians as. Well, Joe Biden's our leader or whatever, or
Biden.
Yeah, our politicians are our leaders.
No wonder we're lost.
I'm like, let's be honest about this and call these people our rulers. And that's what they are. So good for Russia for being honest, at least on that note.
Well, they haven't officially done this, right? Like, this is just being floated to see what the people will think.
It was floated by the Liberal Democratic Party, which is a right-wing party in Russia.
Yeah, things get confusing in other places. I mean, they're all statists.
I doubt they have a left wing.
They're kind of right-wing here too. I mean,
sure. Well, they don't call themselves the Liberal Democratic Party. To me, that's the sign that something is wrong, right? Like, the Republicans aren't Republicans, the Democrats aren't Democrats. That's all very true. But when they go overboard and it's like the Democratic People's Republic or whatever, that's when you know that they're just signaling the exact opposite of what it actually is. Like the Liberal Democratic People's Party or whatever it's called, it's neither liberal nor democratic.
Just look at their actions, right? All of that stuff is just words. And actions speak way louder than words, and all you have to do is look at what these people are doing, oppressing their own people. And again, we're talking about all these places: Ukraine, Russia, North Korea, the United States. All that's different between these plots of land and the criminal enterprises that rule over them is simply degrees.
Yep.
That's all that's different. Yeah, you have the freedom to complain on this plot of land, generally.
And often it's not even a difference in degrees, it's just a different in perspective of the victims, right? Like the Russian government is every bit as bad as the United States government. The United States government is every bit as bad as the Russian government. You may have certain other freedoms here that you don't have over there. I don't know, how freedom really stacks up against one another. But Americans are never going to recognize that their government is as evil as the Russian government, and the Russian government is never going to recognize that their government is as evil as the American government. It doesn't matter how oppressed they are.
No one wants to be wrong.
Yeah. It's just, they're Patriots fans, and they love the Patriots, and they're fighting for that team all the way, and they don't really care that, they're not a team worth cheering for. And I don't know anything about the Patriots beyond the fact that they're a team, but that's what we have here in the world. The loyalty people have to the United States government is fundamentally no different from the loyalty people have. Yeah. And they have no better basis for having faith in the U.S. government either, except that it's their team, so therefore it can't do any wrong.
Well,
I've always thought that sports was kind of a warm-up for nationalism.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's not to say that they can't admit that something wrong has happened, right? Last week we talked about the percentages of people and in the United States and their not belief, but their confidence, I think was the word, confidence in institutions like the court system and the so-called Supreme Court and the president and Congress and even like big business and things like that, organized religion. These numbers are going down. So people can admit that something is wrong, but I think that they would never admit that things are bad here compared to elsewhere. They'll still say, oh, well, America's a free place or whatever, even though we don't even hear people saying that much anymore.
Well, apart from Edge, there aren't too many people arguing that it is better anywhere else. I mean, the whole world is a giant open-air prison.
It's a cesspool of people that are being oppressed in various different ways. And you mentioned Edge, Mark Edge, our co-host, who's been promoting this Move to Honduras project, which, by the way, got some press recently.
Oh, yeah?
And it isn't good. There's more coming up.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with the latest world news. The German government says it's concerned Russia may be planning to tighten energy supplies after Moscow claimed it needs to carry out routine maintenance on the critical Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline. The pipeline is shutting for the next 10 days after the sudden announcement from Moscow. Trent Murray in Berlin says European governments are rattled by the news.
There is real concern here that this could be a pretext for Russia cutting off gas completely. And so many officials here in Berlin are watching this maintenance very, very closely. We know just after 6 a.m. local time, technical readings showed the gas did start to slow down. And as I say, it is an anxious watch now to see whether that window timeframe is adhered to or whether it could go on a little bit longer.
Democrats say Tuesday's hearing on the January 6th Capitol riot will focus on how former U.S. President Donald Trump encouraged violent extremists to travel to Washington to take part in the attack. Meanwhile, former Trump strategist Steve Bannon has now said he will testify at a public hearing. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The committee argued that Trump's tweet, in which he said there was a big protest planned for January the 6th and that it would be wild, was a siren call to violent extremists. That tweet on December the 19th, the committee says, served as an invitation to far-right militant groups, including the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, members of which travelled to the US Capitol and took part in the storming of the Capitol building. Tuesday's session will also focus on the former president's connections to those groups. It comes as his former strategist, Steve Bannon, U-turned on his decision to avoid testifying, saying he would now do it publicly. He's due to stand trial next week on contempt of Congress charges for refusing for months to meet with lawmakers. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
The largest airport in the UK has warned of more flight cancellations and further disruption this summer. Staff shortages and a surge in demand after COVID travel restrictions were lifted are being blamed for the problems. John Beaver reports.
Tens of thousands of passengers in the UK have already been affected by flight delays and cancellations. Now the man in charge of Heathrow Airport has warned of more travel misery to come. Chief Executive Officer John Holland Kay was talking after dozens more flights from the airport were cancelled as they struggle with a lack of staff and rising passenger numbers. Heathrow has been forced to make a number of schedule interventions and ask airlines to cancel some flights if the airport isn't able to cope. In a bid to limit the number of last-minute cancellations, the UK government has urged airlines to make sure their schedules are deliverable.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Ian Nobody and Aria in the studio here tonight. I want to say thank you, by the way, to Free Talk Live supporters of our AMPS program. It's the AMPS Patreon. You can go to amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. Folks like Ryan Walsh, who is a Free Talk Live silver level supporter, meaning that Ryan is contributing the $5 per month that we ask over at amps.freetalklive.com to help us advertise, market, promote, and support the show. So if you like what we do here and you want to help us out, we definitely appreciate it. And you get some cool benefits from doing that. Just go to amps.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones here. I think we got Peakless Mountaineer on the line. Are you there with us?
I am.
All right, we have you. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to give a quick heads up for the things that are happening in money this week.
Oh, yeah. What's going on?
On Wednesday, we've got the new CPI numbers, the inflation numbers officially coming out.
What was it last month? 8.6%?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Which, it was only a couple of, tenths of a percent above what was expected, but they still tend to freak out when that happens. So depending on what that is, and then the day after is when the Fed announces what their percentage rate hike is going to be. So depending on what those two things are, the market could just suddenly go up or suddenly go down. And I just kind of wanted to give everyone a heads up not to lose their minds if that does happen.
Do you have any predictions? I mean, we've certainly seen the prices, or not the prices, but the markets in housing are being affected because the Fed has raised its CPI, or whatever they call them, the basis points, I think is what they call it. They raised those back last month, was it? And they also raised them earlier this year. And so mortgages are getting more expensive now. So even though there's been a crazy buying frenzy in the market in the last year and a half or so due to the COVID crackdowns and people migrating, fewer people are going to start getting mortgages because the rates are getting out of control, right?
Yeah, now that the rates are getting out of control, the houses are staying on the market for half a second because they were not staying on the market for any time at all just recently.
Yeah, not only are they staying on the market, I saw a post yesterday about it, the very least the Austin, Texas housing market, and I don't know if this is happening in other markets, I don't know, but somebody who is out there in that marketplace says that Austin's housing inventory, the amount of houses that are available to purchase right now in the market, is at a record high for the last 5 years, it looks like. And
wow.
Not just a record high, but like it looked like 2x or 3x, like a huge increase over what the previous record was. So there's a ton of properties on the market, and no one's buying them now.
Well, it's harder for them to buy them now.
A lot.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of that just has to do with the, so they went from 0% to now they're at 1.5%. And, every time it goes through another filter, they add on another chunk of that. So you get a multiple of that when you actually try and get a mortgage for these things.
So,
and let's not forget that, having these low, easy to get mortgages is what caused the housing recession in 2007 as well. So they've just sort of done the opposite of that.
Well,
and in particular, they were instructed to ignore certain criteria. So they're like, okay, if you want us to be unsafe with loans, we're happy to do it.
The mortgage issue was kind of the proximate cause, but the actual cause was that conditions made it actually rational to offer loans to people who you knew would not pay.
Mm-hmm. The old saying was, if you could fog a mirror, the bank would give you a loan.
Right. And it makes sense when you consider that basically if you gave a mortgage to a guy who you knew wasn't going to pay, well, you got a house. And by the time you got it, it was worth twice what you lent the guy to buy it. So basically, exactly. So you flip it.
But when the market dried up,
and basically he was your bird dog for investment properties. He put some liquidity in for a while and maybe some sweat equity, and then when he was done putting liquidity in, you just took it.
That's a great point. But then the market dried up, and then the houses were no longer doubling in value; they were going down in value.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with speculative markets. They go both ways.
Anything else, Peakless, you want to share?
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, two things. Since you bring up the 2008 crash, I figure one of the big things that happened was that for some strange reason, there was one big player that didn't get bailed out, and that freaked everyone out. They're like, what? No, you always bail these guys out. All of them, all the time.
I wonder who they pissed off.
Bailed out
I wonder who Bear Stearns pissed off and how.
Right?
Did they
Seriously,
not?
I'm sure there was
did
some
they not
background
provide?
for that.
Did they not provide their quota of children to the right people, or?
And the final point.
Just as far as predictions, I suspect that they might actually be doubling the percentage increase, which is going to take a lot of people by surprise.
Whoa, hold on. When you say percentage increase, you're talking about the basis points, not the CPI.
Yep.
Okay, just to clear.
Right.
Be clear.
Yeah. Yeah, no. The inflation's not going to double, I don't think, for a while. But no, the percentage point increase might go up by a 1.5, like a full percentage and a half increase, which I think would take a lot of people off guard.
That's like unprecedented, right? That's a level that we haven't seen in many years.
Yep.
Okay.
How much did they increase it in 82?
Might take people off guard. I mean, it is possible that the CPI will be just right, and they're like, hey, we don't have to put a huge increase here.
But they may still do an increase anyway. Either way, it's going to be interesting to watch it. I'm sure you'll have some analysis for us this weekend when you come in on Saturday night. So thank you for the call, Peakless Mountaineer. I appreciate hearing from you. I do appreciate people that pay attention to those markets and understand them and can express them in a way that's actually accessible. And he's one of the few people that I can actually follow when he talks about those things, because man, normally when it comes to financial stuff, my eyes just glaze over, and it's just so hard to get into it.
Well, they have a lot of terms that they like to use that are effectively meaningless, but they obfuscate what they're saying to the extent that, your eyes are supposed to glaze over when a politician, a bureaucrat talks at you about the CPI index and the fifth quarterly, which would be nonsense, right? But this is what they do anyway, the fifth quarterly increase to the decreased. You're supposed to tune that out.
Well,
right?
There's a lot of people who make much better use of that information than politicians.
Right, but we require people to be able to take that garbage and translate it into human so that we can understand it.
They don't teach you this stuff in school.
No.
I mean, you're lucky if you learn how to balance a checkbook at a government school, or learn what a credit card is and how it works. And they don't even teach that, I don't think, these days.
Even home economics used to actually teach a lot of things besides cooking and sewing. They used to teach about the economics of running a household. That's how it got its name.
Well, the parents should be doing that, realistically.
They should, but parents abdicate their responsibility to the government
schools. A lot of the parents don't know.
Well, that's because at some point someone stopped teaching them.
They're not paying any attention to their children and what they're learning. They just figure, oh, well, the government's got it.
No, some of these parents, I remember we talked about it during COVID, they had no idea that, like, in November or December, whatever month it was, these kids were being forced to eat outside on the playground, their lunches. God. I mean, they had no idea. They had no idea what was going on at their kids' schools.
Right,
so they don't know what's in the curriculum. They pick up their kids and go, how was your day? And the kid goes, fine.
Well, that was actually one of the side benefits, if there was one, of the forced kids stay home school thing that they did, the remote learning, because parents, some of them were also at home, and so they actually encountered some of the curriculum for the first time ever, and they were surprised by it and upset by it.
Of course, the other benefit is they weren't going to get shot at home.
That is a Benny, no doubt. All right, there's more coming up here in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live. We'll look at the news coverage of this migration of crypto people to Honduras coming up.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government, the real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, phones open if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Nobody, and Aria in the studio tonight. You can join us online, of course, over at freetalklive.com. And if you want to chat with other listeners of the show and people who hate the show, you can go to our chat server over at chat.freetalklive.com. It's a Matrix chat server. That means it's open source, self-hosted. And you can actually create whatever room you want to. There's no restriction on users making rooms on the server. This is completely different from Discord, by the way, where Discord is totally centrally managed by the Discord Corporation and by whoever it is that sets up the quote-unquote server. With Discord here, if you want to create a room, there's a topic or something, some sort of issue or whatever the room name you want it to be for the purpose you want it to be for, you can set it up, you can administer the thing, kick out the people you don't like or whatever. It's totally up to you.
To be fair, I don't think they hate the show, right? I think they really like Free Talk Live. They hate you and they hate me.
Some of them.
But they love Mark Edge.
Yeah, that's true.
They love Nobody.
Okay.
They love
They're just
Captain.
trying to be edgy.
They're not very good at it.
Some are better than others.
Yeah, but none of them are good.
It's fun stuff. Check it out at chat.freetalklive.com. Let's go to Jack. He's in Washington State. Go ahead, Jack.
I was going to bring Hunter up, but I thought about California and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, marijuana should be... I live in Washington, so Washington State, where I can walk to a dispensary right now. Probably take me an hour, honestly, but still, I'm a slow walker.
Okay.
How much you been smoking?
It should be like fruits and it should be like fruit. Yeah, I smoke some. It's like fruits and vegetables. It should be like fruits and vegetables in California and everywhere. You know.
I mean, if you want to grow pot in your backyard, just like I'm growing tomatoes,
exactly.
It's insane to me that you don't have that right.
It is, and it's so amazing. The government is so corrupt at this point. Like, I am speechless.
Do you know people who still buy cannabis through black market dealers in Washington State?
No, but like you brought up California. Now, ironically, if you live in Weed, California, that's a real town, you have to probably buy at black market. Mm-hmm. Now, if you live downtown LA, you can just walk to your local weed store.
Right.
So I think, I mean, I grew up my whole life, in high school. It was just everywhere. It was in shop class and home economics. I mean, that was a good place to get the herb.
All right, Jack, anything else you want to share?
Oh, just I have actually seen the Hunter stuff, and it's probably
Really?
something you guys want to stay away from.
Hold on, just to clarify,
Yeah.
you've seen the new Hunter stuff or the stuff from the laptop?
I've seen 20 or 30 things. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys want to talk about this. The
Well, as
weighing
long
out
as you can
crack.
talk about it on broadcast radio without being too explicit, then you can talk
Yeah,
about
well,
it.
We don't mind if you get arrested.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be safe, but yeah, he's got his Brussels sprouts hanging out in a lot of the pictures with ladies of the night,
Right.
laying out things, chemicals like crack,
Crack
which should be
cocaine.
legal.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that's not objectionable to me at all.
Yeah, so
good for
so far I've done all that stuff. So
Yeah, I have too. But he's still a spoiled little brat because I wasn't able to do it as freely as he was. I had to save my money and wait for the right Saturday night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got to agree with Aria's point here. It's like, okay, well, we think the war on drugs should end, so clearly that's not something that those of us on this show really care about. But the fact is, his dad is a drug warrior. His dad was one of the architects of the crime bill or whatever in the 1990s. I mean, this guy
that specifically targeted crack.
Yeah, this guy is one of the worst out there. Yeah, stop and frisk, sure. I mean, he is absolutely one of the worst people as far as cracking down on raves. I think wasn't Biden, or no, that was Lieberman. Biden probably supported it too, but
I'm sure he did.
I mean, these people are terrible, and they put people behind bars, but behind prison bars right now, prosecuting peaceful people from California for selling cannabis, while this tool, Hunter Biden, is just flaunting about with all these floozies and drugs, and it's like no one's going to prosecute him.
I would suggest that crack is something that should be avoided, but I still don't want him to be prosecuted for that.
It took
Just
me
like
3 days
drinking
of solid LSD to get off crack. It was a bad plan.
Have you seen
But not
Jack,
the LSD. That was a good plan.
The LSD was a good plan. It was a lot cheaper than going to treatment.
Jack, have you seen any of the alleged images with him with very young girls or whatever?
There's a picture, if you can find it. I'm on Twitter a lot, as you might imagine, so it comes and goes. Like the first picture I saw was him laying on a couch. There's 5 girls that look like between 5 and 7, and they have they're all wearing little tiaras, not full tiaras, but like wraparound loop things on their head.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is like brushing his hair. It's a weird image. And I saw a couple hours later, and the kids at this point had their faces blurred out. That's probably the creepiest one I saw.
Yeah, definitely something that isn't he childless? Does he even have kids?
I think he's childless. Yeah.
Definitely not something.
God, I hope so.
Like if he had a kid and there was a sleepover party or something going on,
They shouldn't be brushing his hair. I mean,
it's
that's
a weird picture. I've actually just happened to come across it on Twitter. Again, if you look for
There's
hashtag
5 of them.
pedo Peter, all is one word. This
How
stuff will
long
come up.
before Twitter bans that
Bans that?
hashtag?
Yeah, it's a good question.
As fast as they can. As fast as they
Thanks,
Well,
Jack.
they're fast
Thanks for the
enough.
call, man.
They could have banned it already if they wanted to.
I appreciate hearing from you. So yeah, this thing is blowing up in just the last couple of days, and it's nothing's going to happen to this guy. And I'm with you on this, Aria. I don't think that people should get arrested for drugs or anything like that. But if the government gang were to be consistent, then he should probably be. But of course, we know that even if he were, that he would face just a slap on the hand anyway, and it would all just
Daddy
be for
would also
show.
just pardon him, so
That can happen too, but it would all just be for show anyway, right? It'd be like, oh, shame on Hunter, how dare you, you shouldn't be smoking crack, and he would make a public apology, and
they'd send him to rehab for 2 months or whatever.
And the Biden family would say, this is a private matter between us, and we don't need
Who was it who said that?
It was Jeb Bush.
Okay.
Also,
about his crack-smoking daughter, by the way.
Yep. Also,
Probably friends with Hunter.
Pelosi, when her husband got pulled over driving drunk
in Tampa or whatever?
No, not pulled over, actually. He crashed his car into somebody else's car.
Wow. What happened? Did he get charged with anything?
No, and they won't release any information about it. They won't release the body cameras.
Surprise, surprise.
They're trying to sweep it into the memory hole.
Yep.
Amazing how that works when you're a politician or related to a politician. If they're high enough within the ranks, being related to a representative in the state of New Hampshire is not going to do you a whole lot of good. But, Nancy Pelosi being your grandmother, that's going to do you some good.
The New Hampshire politicians don't have any real power at the state rep level. I mean, they actually get charged with things from time to time. There's been some reps hit with DUI, and there's been some of them charged with other quote-unquote crimes without a victim and things like that. So being a state rep doesn't really give you much sway, unfortunately.
But they do get, state rep plates. I don't remember exactly what they say. And reportedly, they can drive as fast as they want and won't ever get pulled over.
That's true. They are immune from traffic laws on the way to and from, apparently, the State House. So
they're always on the way to the State House.
They could say that, if they wanted to.
I'm taking a circuitous route.
the scenic route. So anyway, the whole hashtag pedo Peter thing, I want to see if there's a way to verify any of this information. Again, without actually downloading the files for myself, but to see if somebody has done some sort of forensic examination on this to make sure that, because I've heard that it may actually be one of these cell phone images. But I don't know if that's true either, right?
500 gigabytes seems a lot of data for a cell phone image.
True. Maybe it's coming from a Mac or something like that, or it's just accumulated over God knows how many years, but it's very interesting. Who knows what the bulk of the data is, and it's hard to really... there's just so much being posted about this. It's overwhelming, the amount of information. Like, if you try to go to 4chan and find anything useful...
You wouldn't want to go to 4chan to find anything useful.
Well, it's there. You just have to dig through a bunch of trash in order to
That's always the case with 4chan, though.
So it'd be nice if somebody did a nice write-up showing some of the worst of the worst that is included in this, because it's ugly.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I mean,
the hookers and the crack. That's not. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested on like a human level, and as you point out, the hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy. Yeah.
But like as far as that's, I don't find that to be morally bad on his part.
And of course, what's Joe Biden going to say? He's going to ignore it. Somebody confronted him at a recent event and called out this happening, and of course, Joe Biden stumbled and security intervened, and Joe Biden said nothing about this. So they're going to try to cover this up as best they can. But it's just like it hasn't barely been 24 hours yet at this point, so it'll be interesting to see what comes out this week. We're coming up here. We'll see you tomorrow. Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, the